Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. It's a little bit shorter today because I figured that people may have stuff to get to. But this is actually a very important question. People are asked in law firms, and very few people know how to answer it. I worked on this for today in response to a lot of people that had questions about this. And I wanted to make sure that almost every webinar that I do, there's some variation of people asking about this question. So it's a very important question. It's a closing question that you're typically asked at the end of interviews, and your ability to answer this will determine often how you get a position, because it's frequently the last type of question that you'll be asked. This question is good for making sure that you find out whether or not it's a good place to work, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And it's also a good question for understanding. Give me 1 second here. Sorry. It's also a good question for understanding, for giving the firm an impression if you want to work there or not. So a very important question, and one I think that once you come away from this understanding how to answer it, you'll do very well. And these type of questions, by the way, are the same ones that I prep when I do interview prep for BCG candidates, including partners with lots of business. These are the questions that I typically ask. And I ask these questions because, or I give a instruction how to answer this question, because this really is one of the most important questions for determining if you want to work at a place, the answers you get, and then also determining, getting the firm an impression if you want to work there at all. This question typically comes at the end of the interview, and every interviewer will often ask, do you have any questions for us, or do you have any questions for me? And unfortunately, a lot of attorneys don't answer this correctly. What they do is they say that, no, they say, I don't have any questions. I think you answered everything. And if you do that, it often gives the person you're interviewing an impression that you don't want to work there and that you don't have any interest in working there. And if you've been on my previous webinars, one of the biggest things that are some of the biggest questions that law firms are trying to answer when they're interviewing you are, can you do the job? Do you want the job? And can you be managed? And will you do the job long-term? So if you answer no, you're giving the employer the impression that you may not want the job very much, because people that want the job typically have lots of questions. If you answer no, what's the answer that I'll show you that you can gives the impression that you can be very well managed. And if you answer no, then it sounds like you're just looking for a job and you don't have any real commitment. And what that means is that you likely won't stay in the job long-term. So the reason I'm doing this webinar, and the reason this is so important is, and it could change the course of your career if you understand how to answer this, is because this question really it hits 3 prongs. Will you be managed? Will you stay long-term? Do you want the job? And also it can make the law firm like you more. So even likable, which is the 4th prong, and not as much, works in this particular question. So this is a hugely important question. And every question that you think you're going to be asked, you should always have questions prepared prior to the interview, because your questions are something that will determine whether you get the job. And this particular question also is the last question typically you're asked. So it's the one where you have an opportunity to leave a very good impression on the law firm. And if you answer the question, it shows you're interested in the job. Like I said earlier, if you are prepared, it helps you as well. And then it also enables you to get rapport going with the interviewer if you haven't done as good of a job with that as before. And rapport is a way of getting the firm to like you. And being interested in the job is one of the most important things. We hire people that like us. We hire people that want to go there. And if you're not interested in the job, then you're generally not going to answer this question. People want to hire people that are interested. You have to demonstrate interest in something. Someone that's not interested is going to be a bad hire. They're going to be difficult to manage. They're not going to want to stick around. The employer's not going to represent anything great to them. So employers all want to hire people that are interested in the job. And if you really want the job, you're going to have questions that you definitely want answered by the employer. People that want something, are curious and want to ask questions in terms of how they're going to fit in and what's expected of them and other things that I'll talk about today. Being prepared for an interview is hugely important. If you're not prepared, what that means is that you won't be prepared when you're meeting people in the firm or when you're people that are giving you work. It doesn't bode well for you. It doesn't make you look like you're someone that would be someone that would do good work or be a good worker. It just doesn't help you. And again, it shows that you're likely to be prepared for meetings and other tasks and also makes you stand out. There are a lot of people that come into interviews that are prepared. They don't know basics about the firm. They haven't researched the people. If they're told who they're going to talk into in advance, they don't know how the practice areas, the ones that are strongest, that they don't know the offices that the firm has. They don't know any. So it's just, you have to be prepared for interviews. It's hugely important. If you're not prepared, you don't look good, and people will hire people that are prepared, and people do not ever go into interviews and wing it very often and get positions. They do get positions if the law firm has things wrong with it and doesn't pay well or other things. But at the same time, being prepared is hugely important. Being interested in establish further rapport. So a lot of times people go into interviews. This question, how you answer it, and I'll talk about that, is going to help you make sure that you are able to establish rapport. But people don't like people that are overly professional with them, distant, and don't connect, and just think that that's what it's all about. We hire people and want to work with people that we like, that we believe we share something common with or that are easy to get along with. We don't hire people, and no one wants to hire people that are overly professional, distant, unable to relate to someone, all of that sort of thing. So answering this question properly enables you to establish rapport with the interviewer. And again, rapport is very important. I could talk a lot about it, and this really isn't the complete point of this webinar, establishing rapport. But rapport is when someone is hiring you, they're not hiring you to just do work. They're hiring you as someone they have to relate to every single day, that they want to feel comfortable with, that they believe is being upfront and honest with them, that they want to believe is going to potentially be a colleague, or if you're interviewing with another associate, or potentially being a partner, or that you'll respect them and do the best you can to be liked by them. All of these things are important. So asking interviewers questions and what can you tell me about yourself, and is going to be, or what further questions you have, is really important from the standpoint that you're giving the interviewer an opportunity to talk about themselves, which I'll talk about in a minute. And good interviewers allow people that are interviewing to talk about themselves and to answer questions and things that they're interested in. And the best interviewers, by the way, when you go into an interview, you have to let your interviewer do most of the talking. If you're not asked, the interviewer is not doing most of the talking, then that interviewer isn't going to like you as much. They're not. So you need to let people do most of the talking. And that's what lawyers are supposed to be, good listeners with their clients. Lawyers don't get the opportunity sometimes. Maybe their clients are talking more about their problems, and attorneys basically have to offer their advice, but don't get to talk as much. So or they don't get to talk to others. It's important to allow people to talk. And again, if the interviewer likes your questions and enjoys giving answers to them, it's going to establish rapport. And I will tell you how to answer further questions in this particular question. But there's a thing that I want to make sure that everyone understands, is that your position in any interview is to get the job. People go into interviews and they think they need to be convinced, or they think that they need to get answers to negative questions or negative things that they've heard about the firm. And that's absolutely not true. When you go into an interview, you need to make sure that you answer questions in a way for the law firm that matches your strengths. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. And you don't want to tell the truth, but you need to find ways that you can get the employer to answer questions in a way that describes your strengths and that they may already understand are your strengths. And asking questions in the right way means you're going to get the interviewer talking, enjoying the conversation, and doing better. So I've got 6 questions that are important to ask and how you answer them. And then again, if you understand this question, you'll do very well. So when they ask further questions, when you ask if you have further questions, one of the most important things to answer, if it hasn't been answered in your interview yet, meaning they haven't told you why the position is open, you ask why the position is open. That is an incredibly important question because that gives the employer an opportunity to talk, and they will often respond to this with a lot of information. And when they respond to this with a lot of information, it will remind them that they really need you as well. And you need to ask this question because they can they'll answer with a lot of information. And it's also gives you an understanding if you want to work there as well. So you're turning the tables and getting answers to questions that you may need if you want to work there. And here are some of the reasons that a position could be open. One is the person got promoted. Maybe there's some sort of promotion in the firm. There's someone became counsel, or someone just moved up in the class year and they need lower class year people to do the work. Many times an associate may have left and gone somewhere. They may have gone in-house. They may have gone to another law firm. That will tell you some information. They may have gone to a better law firm or a law firm that's not as good. That will tell you some information about your prospects there. Oftentimes, someone may have lost their job. So you're turning the tables because a law firm, sometimes you may be losing your job or you may be having problems. And so now they're sharing with you. And then hopefully one of the reasons that they have the opening is that the law firm is growing very rapidly and they need more attorneys to do work. And that's actually a very good answer. The reason that's a good answer is when law firms are growing and have a lot of work, that means that there's probably going to be opportunities for you to advance there. But if they say that someone left or got fired, it's important to understand the reasons why. You don't need to ask other questions, but you can get a gist of what happened from their answers. So many times if someone left or got fired, the law firm's expectations for the attorney, there's a possibility that they're unrealistic, meaning the attorney, again, sometimes the pay may be not commensurate with the role. So what does that mean? That means that the person could get a better job elsewhere while working there, or they didn't feel the pay was good enough. And so you can often get an understanding of that if the pay you're interviewing for the job and it's not good enough. And then also the firm may not be a good place to work. Sometimes lots of people are leaving. Lots of people are getting fired, and it's just a very difficult place to work. So they may give you that answer. And the way they couch this, how they couch the answer to this is often important to understand. So that means that they may say something along the lines of, they'll just give you an answer that will indicate that. They may say, oh, we have an opening because someone left. We have an opening because of this. And so you often can get a lot of understanding of what's going on. Sometimes you'll be able to get an understanding if there's a lot of people that may have left the job in the past. There are sometimes in law firms, I worked in one law firm where there was this partner that was incredibly difficult to work with, and people would literally work for her for 3 to 6 months. Sometimes they had been at the firm for years and would get work from her, and almost everyone left without everyone, including myself, after I worked with her. And that's how unpleasant she was to work with. And because of that, it was someone that you would not want to work with if she was hiring someone. So other times there's just problems with a job would make it very difficult to do. Sometimes the hours or the expectations are too high. And if someone left or got fired, it's also a good idea to try to find out how long the attorney was in the job before you. Because again, there are positions in thousands of law firms that are being filled. People are leaving constantly. And it's often because there's something just about the offer of working there that the firm is making to people that's just not worth it. And so people leave. But the best answer you can get, if it's not couched in weird terms, is that the person that left spent a lot of time there, or if they left because of they were taking maternity leave, or they left because some illness or say but they've been there for a while. Like, having people in that position for a long time is a great answer. And if you hear that answer, you need to say, that's great. And that's what I want too. And really make the firm feel good about it. And then you would also ask, what did that person do? Make them talk about positive things. If someone's been there for a long time, that's very good. Or if somebody left for family reasons, or somebody left after several years to do something else, like go in house, or you would want to know what the person was doing right. And again, if someone is getting promoted, someone's becoming a partner, there's some sort of person maybe moved offices, whatever, but getting promoted is always a very good sign that the law firm is probably growing, and just a very good sign. And law firms that are growing and promoting attorneys have very good things going on. That means they're doing a good job with their clients. That means that their revenues are increasing, and that means they're doing something very right. And by doing something very right, they're much more likely to be bringing in a lot of work that's good, that's interesting, that keeps you busy, keeps you employed, and gives you opportunities later on to be a partner or to advance. And that's very good. And these type of law firms also have the reputation of giving attorneys very good experience. Having very good experience enables you to move to better law firms later as well. So if you hear things like that, my biggest piece of advice is the position is open because the firm is growing, because people are getting promoted. You need to be very enthusiastic. You need to look excited. You need to give the firm the impression that this is very great and this is very good, that you want to have the ability to do a lot more different types of work, that you want to be in a place where you can grow and really do well. This is really the best answer you can get. A lot of times you will get that answer. And when you get that answer, you need to really get very excited and not excited, but very positive. And that will, people feel good about giving that answer. So that will also help you establish a rapport. And then if the position is open because someone was fired or left, then you need to tell the person basically that I believe that I'm very competent, I do well, and that sort of thing. And you can express how you're different and more competent if they get into certain things that the person may have done wrong. Not something that they'll always do, they'll very rarely do. But moving beyond that, you need to try to steer the question away if you hear negative information. And that's my biggest piece of advice. This, by the way, that this particular answer applies. You could also ask, how long have you in a smaller firm, hired some associates and that sort of thing. But this is generally for practicing attorneys. Now, this is a very important question to ask. Who would I be reporting to and what are they like? A lot of times you may be working for multiple people, but other times you'll be working for one partner or a couple of partners if it's a certain practice area. So you need to understand the people you'll be working for and reporting to. And this is a very important question for any job because you may be interviewing with certain people, but those are people that the law firm puts forward because they're like nice and easy to get along with. But ultimately you may be interviewing for people to be the right-hand person of people. And if you do that, then you need to be very careful about if you're not interviewing with that particular person, maybe there's a reason why. So the reason for that is a lot of attorneys are not very good managers. They're very difficult to work with. They give cryptic assignments. They go off kilter for various reasons. And every week on these webinars, there's people that have this problem. And where they work with someone that's just very toxic and they end up getting fired for making small mistakes. And so there are people out there at different firms that where this happens a lot. Sometimes people are fired for that reason. You could go to an interview and someone could say to you that someone was fired because they missed a filing deadline or showed up late to a closing. And that's going to give you an indication that this is probably not a place where you want to work. And if you're not being told who you're going to report to, But you need to understand that. And if you're interviewing with a person that you think you're going to report to and they say me, you need to immediately figure out how to establish rapport with that person and also determine whether or not you feel like you can do well with them. And other attorneys are very good managers. There's some attorneys where people go to work with them and they always feel good about the ability to future and so forth with the law firm, and they feel comfortable. And that's very good. You can tell with those sort of people, like how they talk about the people that work with them and they may be leaving, and they talk about how they like working with certain people and they seem very grateful for having associates or partners that are doing good work for them. So that's very important. And so when you start hearing about the person you can be working for, the people, what that means is that you'll get an understanding of the type of people they are. You have to understand many times what the person's, especially if you're interviewing with them, and people will say things like they're very into detail. They tend to they're very careful. They'll say things like that, or they may say things that are going to make you believe that person's a micromanager. And that's going to maybe something you like because you want to be pointed in the right direction. You want to make sure that you're doing things correctly. And other attorneys that you may be working for are just completely hands off and they allow you to do the work. Now, I will say that in terms of the people that I have ever hired, pretty much all of them that have stuck around and liked their jobs and done well, I am completely hands off. So I allow them to do pretty much whatever they want. They know the best things to do, and they don't necessarily want a lot of direction. I may give my opinions, but that's about it. Anytime someone starts micromanaging people, people do not like it, and they will often leave. I have found that happens with probably at least 70 to 80% of people that are micromanaged. So you may be in that 20 to 30% that likes that, but a lot of micromanaging can be very difficult because a lot of people that you may be working for, attorneys are not taught to be managers, and it's just something to be aware of. Others have a lot of management experience. They're very good at managing people. And so that may be something that you want, but you need to get an understanding of how much people will be hanging over your shoulder and correcting you and telling you how things are done. That's what you want. And other people will not like that. So understanding, if you can, the management style of the person, what are they like? And you're really that's what you're trying to elucidate. You want to understand that, because I can tell you that when people leave firms, when people leave recruiting firms and people leave different types of firms, really what's happening most of the time is they're leaving because they don't like to be micromanaged. It makes them feel uncomfortable. It makes them feel like they're constantly being watched. It makes them feel like they can't do anything right. So all of that, anytime someone's micromanaging someone, that's tends to what happens. And so you need a very good understanding of it. And sometimes the micromanager may be very nice. You don't know. Other times they may not be. But this is really just so you understand, being micromanaged by firms. This is the micromanagers in most law firms, not all, are the reason that people leave, and they're also the reason people get fired. Not always. Some people want to be micromanaged, but a lot of times that's what happens. So you can understand the people that tend to be the biggest micromanagers inside of law firms are the people that are most insecure about their jobs. These include non-equity new partners. They include senior associates and mid-level associates monitoring lower-level associates that are maybe insecure, that they maybe know that they're not as cool as you in some ways, meaning maybe you have better academic qualifications, maybe you're more social and better at social things, a popular type person versus an unpopular type person. Maybe you're not treating them with the respect they deserve. This can often be men talking to women, or in a way that's disrespectful, or it's just you have to, or they realize that people that you have to be very careful because certain people will become micromanagers and catch you if you don't like them. So you just need to have an understanding of what, if they don't like you, of how that's going to work. You just need to be very careful because you can often tell in interviews the people that are most insecure. And those are people, if you're working for them, that can make your life hell. They will, if you are not the kind of person that they like, that they feel comfortable with, that they feel respects them, that they feel no rapport towards, then they will be basically out to get you. They will be mad for reasons that you don't understand. They will, so you just need to be very careful of it. This is what happens to a lot of people when they leave firms. It's what happens to a lot of people when they get upset wherever they're. So you just need to be very careful. I've just seen so many careers destroyed by working for the wrong person. And I've seen so many careers just basically take off by working for the right person. I know a guy that became an extremely successful owner of a law firm that was at a very big law firm where he was billing an incredible number of hours, bringing in enough business where it looked like he could probably grow it to a very high level and basically doing very well. He was in his 8th or 9th year and eligible to be considered for partner, but he went and said, I don't have any major supporters in the firm, and therefore I have to leave and go do something. And I see resumes like that all the time. I see resumes of people that are just never advanced because they're never able to connect with someone. And so you just have to understand you're going to connect better if you're in an atmosphere that works for you. And I will also say, Bob, that if you are part of that 20% or 30% that wants to be managed by an employer and you're not, you will end up leaving that employer because you feel uncomfortable with that. You don't want to be accountable for making sure that things are done a certain way. You want to feel like you can do things the way you want and within reason, and that's good enough. So you need to feel like you're not necessarily being completely micromanaged. You need to feel like you're being given very clear instructions. And if you're not, you don't like it, then you feel uncomfortable. And there are a lot of attorneys like that. And they hate these atmospheres where everything is supposed to be pointed out and told how to be done. I know one law firm in Detroit, it's very funny, that hires people that need an incredible amount of direction. It doesn't really care how academically motivated they are or did in school. It doesn't care where they went to school. And every task that they do, if they take a deposition, all they're expected to do is 100 standard questions, and that's it. There's just forms and things for everything. If they write a complaint, they just do everything is pointed out, and people like that because it makes them feel very secure. But if you're in a position where you want to be told what to do, and you want to know that if you do things the way you're told, you're safe, you're not going to be comfortable in a law firm that allows you to do all sorts of different things. It's not going to work for you. It's not going to work for you. So you need to be very careful about that. I see people leaving firms like that all the time. I was working with a girl not too long ago that had gone to Yale Law School and had started out at Sullivan and Cromwell, then had moved for some reason. Actually, Sullivan and Cromwell, she moved to their office in, I think, Palo Alto. And this is long enough ago, by the way, that I'm not giving away her identity by any stretch of the imagination, because I worked with several people like this past. But she moved to Palo Alto, and she didn't like the office because they didn't have enough work. This is years ago, and the type of things she did. So she went and looked at some other firms, and the first prestigious firm she worked at, basically all the work was looked over, everything was supervised. She wasn't given a lot of independence. She felt just horrible. She was at the point where she was crying because when she was in Sullivan Cromwell in New York, she was basically running these entire deals and everyone was doing the same thing. And these particular firms that weren't even as good as Sullivan and Cromwell were asking her to follow all these procedures, mid-level associates were looking over all her work and critiquing it. And she felt very unproductive and unempowered and wanted to work in other places because of it. So you just have to understand that your work style and the way the person you're working for, the firm works, has to match with yours. And this is going to tell you a lot of information. If the interviewer tells you about someone think you would do well working for when you ask what they're like, and you will get an indication of how they work. Sometimes I was interviewing with a law firm once, and I talked to another attorney about the person I would be working for. And they started saying things like, he's just so freaking organized. If you borrow a book from his office, you have to make sure that you return it the same day. If you don't, he will start calling and emailing you. Not only that, but if you put it back in his office and it's not in the exact space it was in the bookshelf, then he's going to be very upset and will call you and so forth, and doesn't like that. If you don't do things, the procedures in the exact certain way that he likes, he always wants to have subject headings on briefs every other page, meaning break it up, A, B, 1, 2. All these things this person needed. And that to me indicated that this person was extremely uptight. And sure enough, when I interviewed him, I'd never seen, it was a firm didn't require you wore a suit and tie at your desk. I certainly, but I realized that would not be a pleasant place for me to work. And because of that, I avoided a bomb. And when I remember, then I had a friend go to work at that same law firm. And my friend said, and he was in a different department. My friend said, this particular person, people go through and get fired every 6 months and are replaced. And the firm paid a lot of money. I guess they didn't have us and had a good brand. I guess it wasn't that incredibly difficult for them to find people. But at the same time, I was like, wow, this is something to watch out for. And sure enough, I avoided something that I just thought at the time was very scary. So understanding the kind of people you'll be working for and getting a real sense of that can help you. And it also can be a very good thing. You'll hear the person, you may have interviewed with them and you'll say, I like them. And the other person will say, oh yeah, everybody likes them. And you'll talk about some things that are interesting about the person. And that's great. Then you go in and you understand that. But because of the way you understand that, the firm becomes you like things in a way that you like. I could get a lot more into this, but there's certain things that I've learned that aren't necessarily things that you may want to use. I used to work with at a professional level with Tony Robbins, and I became familiar with a lot of his material. And he was much more known 20 years ago, but the way he would do things and people, and he would get people to like them, is he would go in and do things like, if the person was talking in a certain tone or a certain speed, he would talk back in a certain, if the person did things like said, I see this, I see that, don't you see, or I hear this, I hear that, or it feels like, so someone that says feels is more kind of touch oriented and thinks about things that way. If it feels good or feels bad. Someone that says hear, I hear is more sound or like they hear things. Someone that says I see is more seat oriented. So he would start talking, and because most people do that. Most people say, this is what it looks like. This is what, so you can start seeing, or this is what I hear. It sounds like this. It sounds like you're saying that. So once you understand that, you start talking in the same way. And that makes people like you because you're talking in the same way they are. If it feels like this, you talk like, you start using that, or so you bond with people like that. You imitate their gestures. So sometimes people, and I've seen very successful people that know how to do this and they've learned it. So if somebody sitting like this and talking, then you do the same thing. If they're leaning back, you don't want to interview, but if they're leaning forward, you do the same thing. You imitate their gestures, the way they talk, the speed they talk. And that's a very good way to bond with people. It works. It's at a subconscious level. There's entire courses and retreats to talk about this, but that's the basics of it. So if you're able to bond with a certain type of person that you normally wouldn't, or you are able to do these things, then you can do very well in your life. And Tony Robbins, I think one of the big books he wrote that talks about this is his first book, which is Unlimited Power, which I think was maybe 1989 or something. But he's just following the advice of a lot of people that talk about neuro-linguistic programming. But it's not something that I certainly remember to do a lot. But if you learn about it, it can be very helpful with the people that may be managing you. And just, you don't want to be obvious about it, but the people that you need to impress in an interview, you could do these things and really do well. I remember, I won't get too far into it, but I was interviewing once with another associate. He sat up just like this the whole interview. And so I did the same thing. And he turned from uptight and nervous to very smiling and happy. And I could tell he liked me. And it was someone that I normally wouldn't get along with. So I just felt energy in the way he was working, and ended up, I'm sure, helping me get the position. So you need to understand how to do that and bond with people. One of the next things to understand, and this is a very good question to ask, especially if you're working for someone that you believe may be managing you. Very few people do this, and very few people think about this question and ask it. One of the most important questions you can ask are, what goals did you have for me during the first 30, 60, 90 days? So if you are able to ask the question, it's a very important question to ask, because it shows that you're interested in working for them, and you're more concerned about you're concerned about doing well, and it will also explain how well organized the firm is, its management style, if there's going to be reviews, all sorts of things that are important for you to know. And if the law firm is well run, or the person that you're working for or going to be working for is with certain things that they would like, it's going to give you milestones. It's going to help you understand whether or not you can meet them or not. And the way you answer this question, the law firms, you'll get an understanding of whether or not these are expectations that you can beat very easily and be a superstar, or these are things that you can achieve and you're not too concerned about them. But this answer is really going to tell you whether or not it's a position that you can do well in, because a lot of positions you can't. So you need to understand that answer. And sometimes a law firm can't give you a definitive answer. They may say stuff like, we'll try to give you different assignments, and they won't give you a very good answer. So you want to make sure that you get a good answer, and the position, its responsibilities are not well defined. If you need something like that, it may hurt you. If the firm doesn't know what they want from you, what that means is they may just be making up rules as they go, and that's very dangerous. So understanding that is important. And if everyone's position isn't well defined and people don't have certain expectations for what they're supposed to do, that can create lots of problems in the future. So law firms really do need to be managed and have clearly defined positions for their attorneys. If they don't have that, then it often can lead to trouble. And sometimes if they just want you to be operating in a multitasking environment and be self-motivated, that may be good for you. So you need to understand the firm's management style and how things are working there. And if you don't, and you don't like that management style, that may turn you off, and you need to be careful. I will say your objective to going into any interview is to get the job. You want to get the job regardless of whether or not you want it. You have to get the job. You have to seem enthusiastic, because it may be the only job you're going to get. It may have benefits that are far exceed what you have now, so there's reasons you want to get the job. But one thing I would say that you really do need to understand about when you're interviewing with a firm is, if you feel uncomfortable, with the answers you're getting, if that makes you feel like it's not a place you want to work, then you probably don't want to work there. So that's a very important question to ask, because you will interview with firms where you will know right away what it's going to be like for you working there. You will know what the people are going to be like. You will know if you feel like it's the type of group where you can excel or excel. You will get that feeling. You will know if the firm is nice to you and opens up in a certain way, if that's the kind of place where you can have a career, a kind of place you're going to possibly kick to the road. So you need to understand all these things. You need to be comfortable with the environment and the things that they're saying to you. And so that's very good. Sometimes firms will say, we expect you to, want you to feel like you're comfortable. We want you, those are our goals. I mean, you just need to understand the stuff, and it's very important. So as long as you're comfortable with what they say, then you're going to be in good shape. And what I like about these questions, by the way, that I'm giving you, is that you can ask all of them. So if they say, do you have any further questions? You can keep asking these questions, and the person you're talking to will be responding and giving you all sorts of information, and they'll be talking a lot. So it will make them often feel very good talking. People love talking. If you let people talk in an interview section or in any type of thing, that then they're going to really like you. So I had an instance. It was funny. The other day I was my kids and I were just driving down the street, and we were bored, and we went into this open house, and there was a real estate agent in there that was basically alone and just was standing around. And I asked him a few questions, and he just started talking and talking, and I couldn't get out of there for 45 minutes. I didn't want to be rude, but he just kept talking and talking. And then after this talking, he said, yeah, we should hang out. We should go out to dinner with our wives. And I think the only reason he certainly probably wanted business, but I was very clear I had nothing to sell. I think the only reason I wasn't selling my house or anything, the only reason he was responding like this was because I had asked him about himself. And so he did that. I had something similar happen with a dentist just this last week. I asked him a few questions that he found interesting, and he sat down and talked to me for over 30 minutes about nothing. He was talking about how what Malibu, where I live, used to be, people would ride around on horses 40 years ago, and all this stuff, that he just was very enthusiastic about. He talked about his building and how he almost bought it. And this is like someone talking nonstop for 30 minutes while there's patients waiting. So, and at this real estate place, a couple other people came in while this guy was talking to me. So I'm just telling you that if you can get people talking about themselves and topics that they like in an interview, they will love you. They will very much feel that you're doing something. People love the opportunity to answer questions and talk because it helps them. It makes them feel good. It makes them feel that people care about them, that they can be heard. And all these things are just very important. I'll just tell you another quick story. I consider him a mentor, and he's a very well-known marketing person, and named Jay Abraham. He talks about how he was on a plane once, and he sat next to someone, and he decided that he would just spend the whole flight asking this person questions about himself and getting him talking. So he sat there for a 4.5-hour flight asking this person just questions about themselves. He said he didn't say anything at all about himself and just asked this person questions. The person didn't realize, of course, that they were doing all the talking. And when the plane landed, the person said, this is one of the most interesting conversations I've had in years. I would love to meet with you and talk with you some more. And if you're ever in the city, you can call me, we'll get together and all this stuff. And I'd love to show anyway. But the point is that when you let people talk about themselves and you ask questions about themselves, when you're able to steer things where people can talk, whether even if it's about their job, they will like you. That's what people want. People want real connection. They want live connection. So it's better if you're asking these questions in person, and they want to feel that. There's so much disconnection that people have in the world that anytime you offer them the opportunity to connect, they very much like it. And they like it when you have similar interests. That's a connection. I remember there was an opening a long time ago, like in 2002 or three, in Morrison and Forrester in Denver, Colorado, for a corporate attorney. And there wasn't any other corporate openings practically in the entire United States, much less Denver, because there was it might have been 2001, or I don't remember the exact year, but there was a complete crash in the corporate market because there'd been so much overhiring of people when all these new internet companies were starting, and everyone thought they needed to do it. And so all these corporate attorneys were hired, and they were suddenly letting everyone go. And this one attorney just went into a interview with the person that it was like one of these people that he'd be working for. He didn't know it. And he saw that attorney had some stuff on his pictures of him snowboarding on his desk. And because of those pictures, he told him, the partner, that he also snowboarded and had done these competitions and everything. And boom, he got hired, I believe, actually, in something that never happened at that firm, in the actual interview itself, even though they'd interviewed a lot of other people. And even though he did not have the best qualifications for the job, there was something a little off about his qualifications, but he still got the job because he was able to connect with the person by asking them about snowboarding and then talking to them. So this whole idea of rapport, being liked, and everything is very important. It's difficult to do. It's one of the reasons that firms will often, it's very difficult to get hired sometimes if you don't identify with the people. And that can take all sorts of different types of things. It could be going to similar schools. It could be growing up in the same area. It could be, I'm sorry, but it could be things like, even I was in a firm once where everyone besides myself was Catholic. It was very strange, but that means they hired people that were basically Catholic, which isn't that common in LA. And I've been in firms that hired people from one ethnic religious group primarily. I don't want to get into it because I don't want to get in trouble, but firms that hired almost people all from the same sex, firms that hire people all from the same 2 or 3 schools. I was talking to an attorney yesterday that wanted to start his own law firm and had gone to Harvard and then was working and starting this law firm with another one from Stanford. And he said, I only want to hire attorneys from Yale, Harvard, and Stanford. That's it. That's my crazy. But there's people that do that. Having rapport with those people is important. And so you just need to understand that people are looking to bond with you in these interviews. And the way you do that, if you're able to do that, is very important. For the longest time, there weren't a lot of New York law firms in Los Angeles, but you had Milbank, you had, what else? You had Sullivan and Cromwell, which didn't really do any lateral hiring, but you had White and Case, you had Dewey Ballantyne, you had Skadden Arps. So there's more now, but that was what it used to be. And those law firms, when they hired laterally, would pretty much only hire from each other because that was their thing. They only wanted people that were from other New York law firms based in LA. So you just have to understand that every opportunity you get in an interview, you're trying to find commonality, you're trying to bond with people. Some law firms, I was interviewing with one law firm that had 3 or 4 former professional athletes for some reason had gone to law school, like semi-professional. And then they all hired people that had been athletes in college. You can't make this stuff up. People bond with people that are like them. But the idea is, if the law firm this is back to, apologize for going off script. I just think that was a very important point. But if a law firm has very clearly defined things, then you have to act like that's what you like. You're very good at following directions. You can talk about how you do that. And that's great. You do that because they do that because that prevents errors and it makes expectations clear. And then a lot of times you may be involved in helping define roles. And you don't know. Again, if they have less defined roles, then that's also going to be something that you can ask as well, that you enjoy that and you're able to do whatever tasks need to be done. So this is another great question. And again, these questions, I just want to be clear, are things that you can ask in any order that you want. You can also ask them not all while you're doing the, do you have any questions for me? Outside of that, but this is a very good question. What do you like most about working here? You can understand very quickly what the place is based on the answers. Sometimes people will say that everyone here is friends. People go do things after work. The people are great. You're able to work independently. You're all those sorts. They're very important what things are like, and that can be very important. And this is actually one of the absolute best questions to ask, because it can really reveal just so much. Some interviewers will say things about there's opportunity. I work very hard, but I know if I hang in there, I can be a partner. Or the work is very rewarding. It's all sorts of things like that. It can tell you that the benefit, what it's like being someone that can tell you a lot of things. And one time I was interviewing with a big law firm in New York City, and the things were going very well. I'd interviewed with 3 or 4 partners that I was just thought were awesome. I really liked them. They were very nice people, and I bonded with them. They happened to know other attorneys that I knew and I liked, and they were close with them. And so I done work together. So I really liked the firm. And I was interviewing with an associate, and I asked him a question that I don't know. When I asked him, what do you like most about working here? He gave an answer that showed he was really working very hard. And I asked him how hard he worked, and he said that I work very hard and there's just a lot of work here. And I asked him how hard, and he said he hadn't to have a day off in 4 months, which I thought was pretty extreme. And so when you hear an answer like that, it can tell you what it's like working for with employers. So it'll give you a very good indication. And when I heard this, I immediately decided this is the kind of place I wanted to be working at. This is not good. And sometimes when you ask that question, interviewers are going to smile, and they're going to tell you how much they like their colleagues and how everyone works well together, and things that doesn't feel like it's competitive. And if you enjoy this, then that's the answer you want to hear. And that may make you even more enthusiastic, and you can figure out how to bond with your interviewers. This particular answer can give you a very good picture of what it's going to be like to work there. And you'll learn how seriously the employer may take themselves, whether or not there's opportunity, and whether or not you're going to be happy. It's just a very important question. Regardless of the answer, it's important that you make the person feel like they're understood, that people tell you everyone likes to go out for beer, which is not that common anymore. People used to drink a lot of beer, but a drink after work, you should act like you enjoy friendships in the office, and make the employer feel like you identify with them. And again, if people give a positive answer, you have to think about how your questions are making people feel. So if you ask a question and it makes the person reflect about why they like working there, then they feel good. So again, questions that and this is just another point where I'm going off a little off point, but if you're able to ask questions that make people feel good about themselves or make people feel good about where they work, that's how they see you. So there are people that you encounter and they make you feel badly about yourself. They ask questions that are do not make you feel good. They say things like they may ask you about negative aspects of your personality or your reputation. They may ask you about different things that you're happy about. That someone asking questions, the firm may ask questions in a way that they know is going to bring out negativity. People that we don't like will ask things to us to give us an understanding that they see weaknesses in us and they don't like that. And that makes them feel badly. So you have to be very careful anytime you're talking to someone, especially in an interview, to not steer conversations to things that they may be proud of or like very much. Just an example, if you were interviewing with someone that had some negative stuff in their background, maybe they went to a horrible law school compared to you, and you asked them, how did you like this law school? That's not going to make them feel good. If you ask people questions that may have about the firm, where there's some negative press going on about something, and you ask about that, that's going to make them feel badly. You just have to be very careful about steering conversations and steering when you're talking to a firm to steer anything towards something that may make the person feel badly about themselves. You just have to be very careful of doing that, because if you do that, then people are not going to like you and they're going to feel badly. So you ask people things that make them feel good about themselves. You steer conversations to things that make firms feel good about themselves. And that's your job in an interview. Your job is to make people feel good. And if you make them feel good, they're going to feel good about themselves. You make them feel good about where they work. You make them feel good about the reputation of the firm when people may be seeing bad things. You make them feel good about their background and how well they've done. You make them feel good, and you make them feel positive. And so if you do that, then you're going to be very well off. If you don't do that, you're going to be in trouble. So I really recommend doing your best to steer things to that. Another thing you need to do is you need to understand what makes people successful there. So this is the same type of conversation that you can steer things towards that may make people more likely than not feel good about themselves. They're going to reflect on people that do well in the firm when they answer the question, what are the characteristics of your most successful attorneys? This is a very important question. So the way you answer this question is going to give you the answer, the way they answer it, a very good perspective on what's like working at the law firm. I've seen interviewers give very interesting answers to this question. They may say things like, it's very important to network with attorneys outside of work. So that if you like networking and going out with firms and people, I'm going out with people outside of work, then that's good. If you don't, that's not good. That may show that you're not going to do well there. The other thing is if they say things, hard work is rewarded here, then that will show you that that's what you need to do. That if you stick it out, you're going to be successful. If people say the people that are successful tend to bring in a lot of business, if that's something you feel like you can do, that's good. If it's not, then it's not. If it's something you feel like you could learn, then it's a good thing. If you ask this to enough interviewers, you're going to start to see a trend. Like, what is it that this firm likes? And then each time you go into the next interview, if it's the same thing, you can talk in those terms about what in the interview, when this isn't asked, you can be talking like someone that wants things to make people successful. The law firm may value these different things, and you just need to understand what they want. And regardless of what they answer, you need to make sure it's something you're comfortable with. And the message it sends to the interviewer is that you're interested in being one of the law firm's most powerful informers. Most people do not ask this. Most people, when they go into interviews, when they go to work in a place, they just give the impression that they just are just going to there to do the work, that they may not want to advance, and all those sorts of things. I was interviewing with a law firm in New York once, and the two took me out for dinner. The partners didn't. It was this huge, like very prestigious law firm, but the associate took me out to dinner, and 3 or 4, and to my astonishment, these were first and second and third year associates. They were all talking about how they only wanted to do it for a few years and then go in house. This is how a lot of places operate. They were not interested in being successful. And that told me something. My advice is if an employer is asked, however they answer the question, you should try to share in a way the future conversation that's what is important to you, and that's something that you're going to do well, that you can do. Now, this is the final question. It's a very long answer, but I'll go through it fairly quickly. I have noticed that the people that do the best in interviews, that I tend to hire the most, that I have seen I've asked people to make sure you ask this question in the interview if you can, and especially if you're interviewing with someone that you think has the power to hire you, you need to ask, what are the next steps? This is incredibly important because it shows, hey, I really like this firm. I really like interviewing with you. What are the next steps? I want this job. All these things this kind of encompasses. And then the person, by the way, when you ask this question, you're putting them in the frame of mind that they have to think about, we want to hire the person. What do I need to do next to hire them? It's steering the conversation towards something that's very positive. Now, you do not you could ask this question first when you're asked how to tell me about yourself, or when you're asking this question, but you have to, whatever you do, this is something I will tell you that you need to ask if you possibly can. So what are the next steps? It's really extremely important. It shows a person that you're interested in the job, want to move forward, that you don't have any reservations about the job, that it's something you want. Now, let me tell you a little bit about law firms and anybody that's hiring someone. The worst thing that can happen to a law firm, and from their standpoint, and they do not like this at all, when someone has made an offer and they don't accept, they do not like that. It reflects badly on their judgment. They believe, I'm not saying it does. It makes it seem that they had misjudged you and your interest. It shows that if they had hired you, you probably would have thought about going somewhere else. It shows that you are interviewing with places that you think are better, or you're waiting for offers for them. And because of that, if they had hired you, you would have moved to a better place. So law firms do not like it. And as a matter of fact, this occurs with recruiters a lot. So if somebody gets an offer from a law firm and the recruiter doesn't make sure that the person goes there, that reflects very badly on the recruiter. There are law firms that will stop working with a recruiting firm or not like working with them as much if the recruiting firm makes the mistake of doesn't convince the person to go there. I'm not saying that's correct. I'm not saying that's something that we do, but there are firms that will act like that. So people want to make sure that you like them and you will accept. If they don't feel that way, that's going to be a real problem. If you ask somebody to marry you and the person says no, you have completely misjudged your relationship. And that's not something that's going to make you feel good about yourself. It's not something that makes a law firm feel good about themselves if they think that they're going to make you an offer and you won't accept it. The people that are the absolute best at getting offers have the ability to ask what the next steps are, to bond with a person in the interview, to establish rapport, to the extent that this is rare, but people do this, that they're in a position where they could actually pick up the phone and call a partner, even if they're an associate, and say, I'm really enthused. I've got things, this is my first choice, whatever. They're in that position. Now, I'm not saying you should do this, but if you are really into and get the firm excited about you, then you're going to do this. But you have to make a law firm believe when you go into an interview, and this may be one of the most important things that I can say to you, you have to make the law firm believe that you're going to accept the offer. They have to really feel that. They have to feel like they're interviewing a bunch of people, but you will definitely go there if you get the offer. It's like this with schools, for example. Colleges do not like it when people get offers that they know they're not going to accept, that they don't accept. So what do? They work on, they do their best to make sure that someone really wants to go to that school. How do? They do it if people apply early decision or early action. Those candidates have a much higher acceptance rate than ones that don't. I do not know if this is true, but my daughter told me that if you apply to University of Chicago, early action, early decision, and you agree to go there, acceptance rate is, 15% or something. But if you apply late, if you apply not early decision, it's 2%. I don't know if that's true, but obviously what the school is trying to do, or most schools, is they're trying to increase their percentage of offers to acceptance. They want people that really want to go there, because if they don't, they're going to go somewhere else. They just don't like it. And if you're interviewing with a small boutique law firm and they ask you where else you're interviewing, and you say, I'm interviewing with these giant AmLaw 100 or whatever law firms, in addition to that, they're not going to like that. They're going to think this person is not going to accept my offer. I know in law schools, it's very interesting. So if you have incredible SAT scores, an incredible academic background, and you're applying to some schools that are a safety school for you, any law schools are going to know if they make you an offer, the odds of you accepting are pretty freaking slim. So you may be applying to top 5 law schools and decide to put a couple in there that are ranked like 22 or 20. And those schools are going to know, unless you have compelling reasons for go there, that there's no reason you're going to accept the offer. So what do? I know I've had people working for me before they went to law school, and some of them were just beyond incredible. One guy got 170 something on the LSATs, and then had almost a perfect grade point average from, I don't know, Berkeley. And so he was obviously going to get into some great law schools. So what happens is the top 5 law schools, he got waitlisted at maybe Harvard and Yale for some reason because he applied late, but then he got in 3 or 4 other other top 5 law schools. And then he also applied to all the law schools in the top 10. And those other law schools, because they realized he would probably get into some of these top 5 law schools, made him incredible offers like free tuition for 3 years and all this sort of stuff. So they realize they probably won't accept it. So they make offers. And then the lower ones just didn't even bother. Got rejected at places you wouldn't even believe, like USC or things that he could have, gotten it easily, but they realized he probably wouldn't take the job. So when you ask the next steps though, and you look like you want to go there, it gives you another opportunity to express you're excited, you feel like a good fit. It's much more the place you want to work with than others. And you always need to ask the question in a tone that suggests you're ready to start the job right away. Sometimes you may be in a weird practice area where there's not a lot of opportunities. That helps you. When you ask the question, you need to make the employer will think about you in a way that makes you feel like you've already been hired. And you can also determine the level of enthusiasm. So she'll say, I think this has been a great interview. I'm going to go. We'll see what's happening. You'll hear from us soon. And they'll show you, they may see you're to run fit, and they'll get back to you shortly. Some other law firms might just be vague and say that they're going to interview some people. They won't be as nice about it, and they'll tell you good luck or something, which is usually saying you're definitely not going to get a job when people say good luck when you leave. Some law firms, if they're vague and say they're interviewing other people, that's not going to help you. And others will say they're still interviewing. That's not good. When you end the interview, you should always act confident. You should act like you're someone that could get the job, that you would do well at. You should give the firm also the feeling that you're grateful, and you don't have to say you hope to get the position, but you need to act like it. And this is important, that when you're looking for a new position, you ask as many questions as the law firm as possible. And these questions can really help you. They will show the employer you're committed, interested, and you need to give this answer. This is a very good strategy for anything. And it just shows that the interviewer that you've really taken a lot of time to do this. I'm going to take a short break just for a couple of minutes. I will come back. And when I come back, I will answer questions. I would encourage you, as long as you need to, for as many questions as you have, you can ask questions about this or anything in your career. This is a live webinar, so I will answer all the questions. And just feel free to ask anything. These questions are anonymous. If you logged into Zoom and your name is shown, I won't show your name. No one's going to know who you are. You can talk about good things or bad things or questions, and I will answer any questions that you have. And please ask a lot of them if you have them, because they're very helpful for others. So I'll be back in just a minute. And when I come back, I will answer all the questions you have. Thank you. All right, so give me just 1 second. I'll pull up the questions. And again, like any questions that anyone has, it is very helpful for other people. Anytime you can ask questions, I think I just would encourage any questions you have. You may have questions about anything. It could be anything related to your career, and I'm more than happy to answer them. And I think one of the things I've noticed is sometimes the people that are most afraid of answering questions, or turn my screens off, are the ones that should be the ones asking questions, because a lot of times you may have questions that other people may want answered even now or later on. So I would encourage everyone to ask as many questions as you like. Let me just pull up the questions here. 1 second. And again, thank you everyone who's asking questions. And someone wished me happy Thanksgiving and my family. That's very nice. And yeah, happy Thanksgiving to everyone on the call. This may There's actually just as many people on this particular webinar as there are every week. So maybe people have more time, but I did want to do this week, even though it's sort of a holiday, because I do think it's important for people that are on these webinars to regularly maintain your momentum. Learning about this stuff, by the way, I just want to say this before I start, and it's very encouraging. I have people that contact me all the time, every week, that tell me that the stuff that I've taught them or whatever has totally changed the direction of their career. It's made them start firms. It's made them do all sorts of things that are really likely that have changed the whole direction of their lives and careers. And I'm not saying that I'm changing people's lives necessarily with anything I do, or that people are learning things that are helping them advance, and staying for questions is helping you advance. Watching these webinars is helping you advance. And it's very important to just get information from people that know. So I'm not saying I'm the only source of information about how to help your career, but being involved in these sorts of webinars and learning from people is really the most important thing, because most people stop learning when they think they're done learning, when they get out of law school and they're done. They don't need to learn anymore. They don't need to learn how to they don't need to learn anything. They're done. And a lot of people think this way. They think, I've got my degree, now I'm done learning. And this particular type of learning, I will just commend you, is the most important, I believe, type of learning. Anyone can go to law school. The very few people like yourselves are doing what it takes to learn about the profession and how to interview and how to do all these different things. It's incredibly important. I'll just say that people that do that, I commend. I've just seen so many people become successful from it. And again, every week I receive people that have done incredible things with their careers, turned their careers around or gotten their careers started by learning this stuff. And so again, there's nothing special, to this. I'm just showing you the things I've learned, but learning this kind of thing is just incredibly important. And again, I've talked to people before that have followed certain motivational people, where it's Tony Robbins or whoever, and people that have read and studied certain books that are Think and Grow Rich, or different motivational type books that have changed their lives. So this stuff, all I'm saying is, can really change your life and make you much more effective if you learn these sorts of things. And it's learning with this particular day is good too, because you may not be as distracted. Okay, so this first question is, I'm a new attorney that's had mixed success in interviews. A few months ago, I was on a roll and had multiple job offers. Wow. From those, I chose a boutique firm in a practice area I wanted to do. Ultimately, it did not work out with this firm. I know no firm is perfect, but I felt it was a bad fit. My work was well taken, but my supervisor was often combative and defensive with me, unlike with others, and did not seem to like me personally. It's a good point. I tried my best to turn it around and watch what others did to please this boss, and nothing worked. Eventually, she fired me pretextually over a minor mistake, which was very unfortunate and frustrating outcome. I also did not have sufficient allies in the firm. Despite my best efforts, just found it hard to connect with partner-level attorneys. I'm now looking for a new position, hoping to find a better position. How can I determine if a firm is a bad fit or not likely to offer stability, or is there something I'm missing that I did wrong? Okay, this is a very good question. There's just so much depth to this, and so many things that people ask that are similar to this every week. You have a bunch of issues that I'll talk about in this right now. Minor errors. By the way, this minor errors getting fired is something that is coming up basically weekly. People are asking this question. So this is a very important question that, again, people have been asking this every week for the past several months, almost the past several months. So this is very important. We'll also talk about boutiques right now, and we'll talk about what else? I don't know, boutiques, practice areas specific firms, and what else? I'm just trying to write down the issues here. And there's a lot of good questions here that everyone should understand the answers. Firms. We'll talk about, no allies in firms. We'll talk about, finding a firm that worked, potentially. Okay. Practice area, my bad fit. Let me see. No, allies, just making sure I have all the questions because these are very good questions. I think these will apply to everyone pretty much that is on this call. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about, and then partners, partners not being nice to people. Okay, so let's just talk about, let me just make sure I have all of these questions that I want to talk about. Okay, I just pretextually firing. Okay, so the first issue is the one-third rule. And that rule basically says that one-third of the people that you meet, and this is a lot of studies have shown that, of people you meet will like you. You will like and will like you. This is what applies, will like you. And the other one-third won't care either way. They'll just think, oh, this person's best. And then the other third will dislike you. So that's how it works. So people dislike people and like people for all sorts of reasons. It doesn't really matter why it is, but your objective, of course, is to join a firm where 2/3 to 4/5 will like you. And then you avoid the people who don't. Different firms have different personalities and 4/5 different personalities. And so, look at that. Different personalities. And so you want to make sure that you join a firm where you feel like more people will like you than not. So I'm sorry to bring this up, but I'm going to bring it up, even though it's going to get me in trouble. It's not necessarily going to get me in trouble, but it's not something that people want to hear in a meritocracy. But people hire people like them. So like people hire and work well with people like them. Every firm has I talked about this today, but every firm has a certain personality. So they hire around all sorts of even political, whatever, political and anthropological, I'll use that term, lines. So they hire logical. They hire people that are like them. So they hire people that may have been grown up in the same types of backgrounds, meaning from the same types of neighborhoods, from the same types of parents. They figure that out. I don't know how they do it, but people do that. And they hire from people that are the same political party as them. They hire from people that are from the same types of tribe, meaning it could be, and again, I'm going to go here somewhere that people are going to, it could be some same religion. It could even be, I'm not going to even say it, but it could be, well, first of all, I'll just say it could be mainly males. It could be mainly females. It could be people that look a certain way. I'm not going to get into this, but there are certain firms you will walk into and you will see everyone in glasses looking very nerdy. You will walk into others and you will think you're in a freaking magazine ad or something. That's how it is. And so people hire people that are like them. They hire people. If you broke up in high school, you had your stoners, your nerd, whatever, stoners, nerds, athletes, popular, non-popular people. Like people go into different groups and they're part of different groups. So your objective, and when you're looking for a job, it doesn't matter if this is a freaking boutique or not. Your objective, the first thing is, if you go into a boutique and people are not like you, there's a complete difference, then you are not going to do well. I knew a guy that couldn't get a job because he had gone to these great schools. Like I think he went to Yale, then he went to University of Virginia. I was in school with him. And his whole explanation of why he chose Virginia was because he was a polo player. And he learned this because he grew up very wealthy and he had his own horses. And he went into interviews and talked about how he was a polo player. The response to that is people thought he was like an a-hole, basically. And who has time to do that? And so he did not get any jobs, nothing, even though he had a great academic background. That's what so you identify with a certain group and that can hurt you. You go into a law firm that most of them, at least in different cities, are very democratic, filled with Democrats, and you start talking about politics and how you identify with a certain political party and how you think all these things, people are not going to like you. If you go in and you appear on the side of some very controversial political issue, and people aren't like that, they're not going to like you. If you appear on the side of their political issue, they're going to like you. So you just need to identify with that sort of stuff. There are law firms that are composed entirely of people that are different religions. If you are in certain parts of Utah, everyone is going to be from one religious party. If you are in certain parts, if you're in Salt Lake City, that's not going to be the case, but it just depends. There are firms you can look at that's going to be almost all females. You get a sense of people. So my point is that when you join a firm, it doesn't matter if the firm's good in your practice area. It doesn't matter if they pay a lot. None of this stuff matters. If you do not fit in, if you don't feel that a lot more people are going to like you as opposed to not care or will dislike you, then you're going to be toast. You're just not going to be able to get a job there. And that's a problem. Or if you do get a job there and they're just hiring you because the work done, you're going to have a very hard time advancing if you're that different. It's just how it works. It's not to say that there's anything wrong with you or there's anything wrong with the firm. This is just how groups work. Now, everyone tries to say this isn't the case, and certain people will be advanced because the law firm needs people of certain backgrounds. Could be your parents or you're a famous politician, whatever the thing is. But the point is that if you don't identify with people, then they will come down on you and they will basically not like you because of something. They may have been, just to give you an understanding, they may have been all nerds in high school and they may see you as someone that was very popular and that makes them feel badly about themselves. And this is their way of getting back. Hey, I was a nerd, but now I'm in control and I don't like you and I'm going to push you out just like this is how people think. But you just have to understand the type of people you're going to work with. Now, are people always this way? No. Are well-organized firms and so forth always this way? No. But it's just important to understand that. So again, people hire people that are like that. And if you make minor errors and you get fired, it's more likely that's going to happen. If it's not boutiques, it's important to understand that these are very closed groups of people. They're closed. They're very small, intimate groups of people. And so what that means that if you don't get along, if they feel any tension, they feel anything, that you're more likely to lose your job. That's just one thing. But you need to identify. People feel comfortable. That's very important. So if you don't do that, that's going to help. The other thing just to understand is that if you don't identify with everyone, the firms are also more sensitive to economic trends. Economic trends. So that means if they lose business, it's going to hit them harder. Lose business, all sorts of things can happen to boutiques. Also, practice area specific firms can also experience problems. If they do all bankruptcy, for example, then market could slow down and when the economy gets really bad and they could lose business and be sensitive. You also have, in addition to these bankruptcy, you have firms that do things like, there used to be a lot of firms doing IP litigation. And because of a Supreme Court decision, a lot of stuff happened with IP litigation firms and basically made it more difficult for patent trolls to sue. So that hurt a lot of the firms that were doing that. So boutiques can be very sensitive. And again, those are all the things that can happen with boutiques. So what I'm saying to you basically is that if you work for a boutique or you believe that you're getting fired for minor errors and so forth, a lot of times it's just because you're a bad fit. And bad fits, by the way, where you're not fitting into this 1/3 and so forth, are much more likely to occur in law firms that are boutiques and law firms with a lot of people. So law firms with a lot of people, in order to get a lot of people, they need to basically attract a lot of different types of people into the firm. So if that's not happening, this is what you get. And so you just need to be very careful about that. So this is a lot of questions this person asked that I just wanted to make sure that I answered it. as well as possible. But anytime you're being fired for minor errors, this is basically because people don't like you. They're not going to fire you for minor errors. If people like you, they're going to defend you. So that just means that you went into a group that's a bad fit. And you don't know why the group's a bad fit. They just may not like people like you. Sometimes it could be as simple. This is stuff I've seen. Great law school, great firm pedigree. So say you went to Harvard and you worked at O'Melveny and Myers, and then you went to I'm just using O'Melveny because they're such a well-respected firm. And then you go to a firm with people that didn't go to top law schools or opposite people for whatever reason. So what are they going to do? They're going to want to find fault to prove that they're better. Who knows? All sorts of crap happens. They're better instead of thinking you're special or whatever, and then get rid of you. So it's just, you have to be very careful of all this sort of stuff. Really, and how things work in firms. So you just want to make sure that all these things are being. So I understand that's a long answer. I wasn't trying to overdo it. I just want people to understand this. Okay, so this question. That was a great question. Okay, this is a good question, but most law firms and also bars in California are required to take a certain amount of continuing education each year. So this is just an example. A lot of firms will not have that. I don't know. Some firms will allow you to take CLE credits during work. Others won't. You can certainly ask questions about that. But the problem with asking questions like that, and I just think this is a good question for a lot of reasons. Any question that highlights something not billing hours that the law firm is not good at, is a bad question. It's often a question. So what does that mean? So that means that you have to be very careful about the questions you ask. I have seen so many people not get jobs or lose jobs by going into law firms and asking questions that highlight not billing hours or something that the law firm is not good at. So what does that mean? So that means, first thing is you go in and you start asking about pro bono, how much pro bono is allowed. You start asking about things like paternity leave. Paternity leave, vacation policy, working remotely, all these sorts of things. If you ask about, so I've seen so many people literally go into interviews and lose jobs by asking about pro bono. If you ask about pro bono, that's going to basically show the firm that there's nothing wrong with going into a firm and doing pro bono. It's a good thing, and you can often learn a lot and become a better attorney. But if you go in an interview and you ask about that, the law firm is not going to think that you're going to want to work all the time. They need people. Just put it yourself firm's choice. Would you choose someone for your firm, someone that wants to work a lot of hours and commit themselves? Someone that wants to commit themselves to you, commit themselves to work, or someone that wants to do pro bono? And this is a typical question, but it's a very important one. And that's why I'm bringing it up to you. So people ask to do pro bono. People ask these kind of questions all the time. They think these are good questions. They think that asking about pro bono is something that, and again, people think this is important. And I'm saying that doing pro bono work is not important, but I really want to bring this up because this matches a ton of types of questions that people ask. People go to law schools almost, I think every single one of them, some of them are like 98% Democratic. And when I'm not saying that one or the other, but people learn that's what's expected of them, that this is the best thing when they're in law school. They're being taught by people from backgrounds but the problem is when you get out in the business world, the law firm just wants you to bill hours and dedicate yourself to them. And if you start asking questions about things like this, it's going to give the opposite impression. So what does that mean exactly? So I see resumes all the time of people that simply are not getting jobs. And the reason
that they're not getting jobs is very simple. They're going in and they're doing things like they're listing things on their resume that have absolutely nothing to do with what the law firm wants. And here's what they'll do. I see people from Columbia, Harvard, all these different great law schools, NYU, that find themselves inexplicably to them not getting positions. And they're saying that they're applying to the right places, they're using good recruiters, and they're doing all sorts of things that should make it very easy for them to get positions. And yet here they are, nothing positive is happening to them, and they're not getting jobs. So what's going on? Why no jobs? So what they will do, these people that aren't getting jobs, unemployed people not getting jobs, is they will have things on their resume. And again, I'm just telling you what happens. I'm not judging this. I'm not on one side of this issue or not. I don't care. I don't care. I just want people to get jobs. So what are they doing? So they will do things like they will say, did pro bono, they'll be a corporate attorney. I don't care. They'll say corporate, they'll talk about all the pro bono that they did at their previous job. And sometimes they'll list, this is insane. They will list like 2 or 3 lines about pro bono before they even start. This is very common, by the way. I just wanted to make everyone, this is very common, but I think it's insane. 2 or 3 lines about their pro bono work. And then we'll basically say, also assigned to corporate and did general corporate work or something. But insane. They will literally do this when they're looking for a job that could pay $280,000 a year. This is what they're doing. And these people, it doesn't matter. No one cares about their schools. No one cares about where they're from. They just know that this person is a freaking bad deal because they are not going to be committed. And the firm has a choice. They have a choice of someone that wants nothing to do but practice law and someone that wants to do something else. And they will choose the person that wants to do nothing but practice law every single time. And why did they do that? Because their business is. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wanting to do this. A business also can do good in the community and do pro bono, but someone that looks like that's all they want to do is freaking toast. Or if they make that first, or if they even list that they did it on their resume, or they ask questions about this, they're toast. No one is going to, I'm sorry, but it just doesn't work. Sometimes people will list all sorts of stuff about affinity or whatever on their resume. They'll say this and this and this and this, and won't get jobs, and they won't know why. You could sit there and you could talk all about Democrat or talk all about whatever in every job that you have. And if you're interviewing with a firm that's not like that, it's going to hurt you. So you have to be very careful. You have to basically look like someone that's there to do work, someone that isn't on the side of one issue or another, and that's it. So you have to be careful. I'm just telling everyone, if you learn this one thing, it could save your freaking career. No one's going to tell you, by the way, that listing all this stuff on your resume is going to hurt you because they don't want to be on the wrong side of something and have people mad. But you just have to be very careful. I will tell you a quick story. I'm not going to don't judge this. I'm not on the side of this issue. I'm not calling law firms anything. I had a candidate after September 11th, 2000, was looking for a job in New York City. He went to great law school. I don't remember what it was, Stanford or whatever. He was working at an incredible law firm, like one of the top law firms. And he decided to look for a position, and he had all sorts of stuff on his resume, and he was all over that talked about stuff that was not in vogue at the time. I guess being part of a group that was not in vogue. I don't even want to say it because I don't want to get in trouble, meaning that people were suspicious of him and all, whatever. And not a single interview, whereas other people that didn't have that had, frankly, worse qualifications were getting interviewed. So you just have to be very careful about, what you're putting in your resume. And if you think it's going to get a job, if you're applying to positions in very conservative parts of South Carolina and you have all sorts of stuff in your resume, it's not going to hurt you. So you just need to be very cognizant of this. I'm telling people this because everything needs to be tone down. You don't want to talk about being interested in polo. You don't want to talk about things that are going to take a lot of your time. You just have to be very careful. So paternity leave, I've seen people, and again, I'm not judging this. I'm not on one side of the issue. I've seen people at major law firms listing going in or taking paternity leave and coming back and suddenly being frozen out of work. Like no one wants to work with them anymore. I've seen attorneys that have asked about this in interviews, not good jobs. Asking about vacations, not a good idea. It shows you want to be doing other things. Asking about working remotely when you have no idea what the firm thinks about that is a really freaking bad idea. Showing you don't want to come into the office. So all these things, man, you just need to, I'm just warning everyone that you want to be very careful about asking these kind of questions. It will make you toast and you won't know why. You'll think, why does the law firm not like me? Or why am I not getting jobs? You make your resume and your questions and your resume and the questions you ask should make you a mystery. Like they should not, unless the firm's like that, they should make you a mystery. People do not know your feelings about pro bono. People do not know your political leanings. People do not know anything. They do not know your religion. Unless you want to go with this stuff, you do not put this on your freaking resume. You do not ask questions about it. And again, I'm not on the side of one of these issues or not. I don't care. All I want you to do is to get a job. And if you do this stuff, it can hurt you. I'm just telling you why that is. I'm not saying I'll make you a mystery. I'm not saying that I believe in it. I'm not saying anything. All I'm saying is that you be very careful because anything there is potentially going to make 1/3 of the people like you and the other third not necessarily. I'm going to go to some of the early questions. Wow, these are great questions. I really do think everyone who's asking these is awesome and these are good long questions. And this is a good time for people. You may have time to stay on this webinar because of the upcoming holidays. So I do appreciate everyone's questions. Okay, in the context of discussing goals for the first 30, 60, 90 days, how can a candidate delicately inquire about potential obstacles or challenges they might face in the role? Is there a way to frame this question positively to show problem-solving skills and a proactive mindset? Yeah, you can say something along the lines of, I realize it's really important to get off a good foot and people will remember me based on how well I do early on. What do I need to do the best job possible in the first 30, 60, 90 days? I want to talk about, by the way, why your first 30, 60, 90 days are so important. They're important because you show people how enthusiastic you are. People get an immediate first impression of you. And that first impression is going to make it so they either think positively and want to give you more work, or it's going to give you a negative impression. If you give people a negative impression during your first 30 or 60, 90 days, people will stop giving you work. You will be in a position where you're not liked, where things just aren't going well for you, and you're thought of negatively, and you have that initial bad taste. So you need to do very well with anybody, by the way. If you go into a firm as a summer associate, if you're a law student, if you go into a firm as a new associate that hasn't been a summer there, if you go into a firm as an experienced attorney, if you go into a firm as a partner, the first 30 or 60 days are incredibly important because you will either establish momentum or you will not establish momentum. And that's a very important thing to remember. And so doing the best you can during the first 30 or 60 days is incredibly important. Potential obstacles and challenges. I don't know that you want to go too much into that, but you can actually say that. What are the biggest challenges to doing well? And that is, it's actually okay. What would I need to do to really impress you right out of the gate? And very good question. People like that. And it shows a lot of motivation and then an understanding of what the problems are and so forth. That is a very important question. The only way to really do that well is to ask it in a way that shows you're ready to avoid problems, and you will get good answers to that. The people that answer that will tell you exactly what you need to do, and that will be helpful for you to establish your brand early on. Okay. So next question. I'm going to go through all these questions. I'm going to answer some more from the beginning. I'm not going to answer some. I'm just going to go randomly. So if you are working for your question, I will make sure I answer it.
everyone wait, and I'll get to the new ones and older ones. Okay, so I'm a new attorney in a specialized field of litigation and employment law, but a lot of my firms in my region mostly do insurance defense. I will explain insurance defense, why that is in a moment. And employment opportunities are limited. I'm coming from a branch office of a larger firm. Should I consider going to a smaller general practice firm, or should I stick to employment law and look at other regions? Okay, so everyone understands there are lots of insurance defense firms. Insurance defense, by the way, is litigation. There are a lot of insurance defense firms. And if you are interested in getting a job and you feel like you're having a difficult time doing it, insurance defense is always a great practice area to go into. It's a great practice area because if you are doing insurance defense, then you're more likely you have a good opportunity to get a position because there's just a lot of demand from it. Insurance defense, by the way, is auto accidents, slip and fall, all those sorts of things, all that sorts of things where people get injured and insurance companies defend people. And they typically, those jobs don't pay as much, but there's just a lot of them. And so this person is saying that employment opportunities doing employment law are limited. I disagree. Employment law is not limited, and it's not, because every business out there gets sued for different things. McDonald's gets sued all the time. Everybody gets sued. There's just, you have one little McDonald's and people are getting injured. There's sexual harassment. People feel that I'm not saying there's sexual harassment, but there's usually some sexual harassment. There's people think they're discriminated against. People think they were fired for the wrong reason. That's just a freaking McDonald's, one McDonald's. So they will have things. So I do not think employment law is limited. I do think that employment law for working if you're in a large firm, the problem with working in large firms in employment law, I just want to make sure everyone understands, is employment law is typically in the highest paid law firm. Employment law is almost always limited to defending against class actions that are brought because the companies can pay a lot of money for that. The show is typically limited to class actions. Then the next thing that happens with employment law at the largest law firms is sometimes they do it for established clients, but the problem with employment law is that because there's so many firms, you have like your Littler Mendelsons, your Jackson Lewis's, your Ford and Harrisons, because there's so many firms that do nothing but employment law. In order to do employment law consistently for your McDonald's and your Walmarts and things, someone needs to be able to consistently not charge as much money. So these firms are all not billing a lot of money, except for the major firms. So there are not a lot of big firms that do employment law. The ones that do typically do class action defense, and the ones that don't do that may do employment law, but they're typically not charging as high of rates. So it is harder to get jobs in big firms. But by the way, those jobs are also less stable because a lot of times, because employment law the firms can't charge as much money, or it's more difficult to hold on to clients. Those firms that do employment law, the big ones, often are looking to get rid of their employment law practices. So what would I do if I was an employment law lawyer? So employment law lawyers, the nice thing about them is there are tons of firms in every city that do either employment defense or employment plaintiff's works. There is a lot of money to be made in plaintiff's works in most states, not all. And there's also a lot of money to be made in employment defense. So I do not think that wherever you're working, I don't think the employment opportunities are limited. I will tell you, let me just see if I can do this real quickly. I can open a page doesn't have anything so scary. I don't care where you are. Let's say you're in, I don't know, Oklahoma City. It's not a huge market, right? I mean, Oklahoma City, employment defense law firms. Law firm. The way you look for opportunities isn't necessarily to be able to find, hiring partner. Awesome. Interesting. Sorry, I'm going to actually cut this out. Hiring partner is one of my companies. I'm very surprised it's showing up this way. So I'm excited about this actually. Okay. But I didn't even know that company advertised. It's pretty awesome. So these are all these firms you can see here in Oklahoma City that do defense stuff. So you can find them. It's not too hard. You have all these firms. You also have, if you want to keep looking for law firms many times,
there's sometimes things will come up that show you all of the different places. So you have these sorts of things that come up, these different rankings of law firms. And you could also, in a lot of markets, like if you're in a big market, let's say Sacramento, California, that's not that big of a market, that's California, employment defense firms, you'll see this, where they will just suddenly show you these kind of listings where you start seeing all of these, there's BCG, I love it. You start seeing all of these first. Pretty cool. So you start seeing all of these different places that do employment law defense. So the way to find jobs, by the way, I just want to make sure that everyone understands the way to find jobs. And I'm just the way to find jobs is not to apply to firms that you're finding on job boards or whatever, et cetera. The way to find jobs is to find jobs. And this one piece of advice, this one little piece of advice I'm about to give you could change your life, and it really could. It's going to, if you fully understand what I'm about to say, it's going to be 100 times worth the price of admission or whatever. It's no price, but coming to this webinar, it's going to, if you write it down, it's going to change your life. If you understand it, it's going to change your life. It's going to make it so you never have to worry about getting a job again or being unemployed, because no one is doing this. So there are jobs, I will tell you, because this is what I do. 85% of Pearson's placements and BCG's placements of our placements, I want to make sure you understand this, because these are firms that are paying us tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, to find people. Sometimes they'll pay, if it's a partner, they will pay $250,000 or whatever. This is something that everyone should understand. It's going to change your freaking life. 85% of placements are with firms that do not have openings. So this is my entire business that no one else is doing. Places with firms that do not have openings. No one else is doing this. No, 99% of recruiters do not do this, and recruiters do not do this. And not only that, 95% of job seekers do not do this. Why is this important? So when you apply to jobs, and again, this is so important, when you apply to firms that don't have openings, you are the only freaking applicant. So because no one else is doing this. No, 98% of candidates do this. And if they do, they're only applying to these big firms. They're not applying to everyone. Candidates do not do this. So this is huge. Like, I just want everyone to understand what this means. So why was I searching on Google? I was searching on Google to show you all of these freaking law firms that do your type of work. It's not that employment opportunities are limited. It's that no one's freaking applying to these jobs. You have to be out of your mind. And I don't know why people don't do this. I don't know. It's mystified me to freaking death my entire damn career. But no one does this. Like, you probably don't do it. If you want to work in freaking Sacramento as a employment attorney, like what's happening here? Something happened. Oh, I don't know why this isn't scrolling. But if you want to work in Sacramento as an employment attorney, like, look at all the freaking places you can apply. No one's doing this. They'll go to Indeed or LinkedIn. They'll say, whoa, there's no jobs. Screw it. This is what people do. They're like, oh, I got to move. No, you don't have to freaking move. I've seen people working in all sorts of markets. They're like, oh, I'm in Colorado City, no jobs. And I do a search for them on Google or in databases, and there's 50 firms doing the kind of work. Like, no one does this. You have to be, again, I've been in this business forever. You have to be out of your mind. No one does this, to not do this. So there are employment law opportunities every single where you go. Now, how else do you find them? Again, I'm going to promote one of my freaking own companies, and I'm not doing that. So Law Crossing, which I own, I find goes to every law firm website that has jobs, every company website, and that we can find, and puts them on there. and they're not advertised. If you put a job on LinkedIn, or if a company puts a job on LinkedIn or Indeed, they're paying. They're paying to be there. So that means you're only seeing a small fraction of the jobs that are out there. You're not seeing every job that's available. You're only seeing the jobs that people are paying for. So Law Crossing just shows you every job that's websites that aren't advertised. That's it. Works. But anyway, it's not the best for small markets. If you're in like tiny market, like very small, example would be a town of 15,000 or something. It's not the best because there's not a lot of ever firms, even 10,000 is. But anyways, I work and live in Malibu, California. There's probably 10 law firms here, but maybe 7,000 permanent residents. So again, but the point is then Law Crossing, I don't want to promote it, but also has what are called archive jobs, which is the most smartest thing anyone can do. That's just jobs that a law firm companies have had in the past and law firms. And if you apply to those, they're likely to do that. So I just want everyone to understand the reason I'm being so dramatic about this frickin' point is that there are jobs in almost every market, but you have to make them, you have to find them, you have to actually go out and job. Things aren't going to come to you just waiting, throwing your hat in the ring with everything else. If you are applying to a job, what happens is anybody with an internet connection that finds a job on LinkedIn or Indeed is just bombarding those employers with openings. And typically what happens when you apply to openings is people are only they're applying to the first openings. The employers typically take people from the first applicants. So if you're like an employer and you get 50 applicants or 100 applicants, like what's going to happen is the first 20 or 30 you're going to look at, and then you're going to try to interview and hire based on those. And the ones that come after, you're just like, I don't want to keep freaking clicking on open and looking at all these emails. I'm just going to look at the initial ones. I'm going to spend my time interviewing those people that I like. And hopefully I won't have to look at more people because this is a lot of work and I don't have time and we're billing. That's how law firms think. So you want to be first to apply, but better yet, you want to be the only applicant. I can't emphasize this enough. If you read this and you listen to this, then if you understand this, it will give you dividends for the rest of your freaking life. Where no one does this though. And again, I'm not talking about sending your resume unsolicited to Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher. That's an awesome law firm. The only thing I can say is that if you try to do that, send an unsolicited resume to them, everyone is doing that. So it's not going to mean as much as that if you send it to a firm that's not that large. So that's how that works. Okay, so this says, I'm an attorney in a specialized field of litigation. Oh, the same question. I'm sorry. I didn't ask that one. I didn't put the right one. And I, by the way, will get to all these questions. There's a lot of them, but I'm going to make sure I get them. Sometimes I get the most responses to job applications or just resumes, so just through LinkedIn, rather than applications requiring a cover letter and lots of other materials. Is this assignment for materials while or something else? Honestly, most employers only look at your resume. That's just how it works. Sometimes they'll look at your cover letter, but not that often. I think we write cover letters for all of our candidates at BCG, but I personally believe that if you have a long cover letter, it can actually hurt you. One line or 2 lines or 3 lines, not from a recruiter, but if you're applying to law firms on your own, is probably better than a longer one. Sometimes people will say all this stuff, like I gained this incredible experience in litigation where I was able to exceed expectations, and all this sort of stuff actually hurts you. Anytime you write a long cover letter, really what you're doing, it's funny, is you're showing people your weaknesses rather than your strengths. That's funny, but that's a lot of times what you're doing. You're saying things you think are a big deal that are not, and making yourself try to seem better than others. You're just doing all these things that are wrong. My opinion is that less is more, especially with this, that the cover letter may be hurting you because you're just writing too much. What is a cover letter saying? Applying to this position, I very much being considered, very much being considered.
better, something along those lines, very simple comparison. And believe this is just I believe I excel. And something I've always wanted to look for since I interviewed with that. Something very simple. You don't even have to say, that's all you need to say. I had this funny thing happen where I got a recommendation letter once from a very well-known attorney, a law professor, that most attorneys in the country know very well. And I had done classes for him. I'd done a couple classes with him. I had done a book for him. I wrote a book for part of the class. What else did I do? I just did a lot of stuff for him. And he wrote a recommendation letter for me that was very powerful. And it just said, I've been a law professor for 40 years. He was older, 40 years. I very rarely met someone that a new attorney and someone much as Harrison, something very simple. Harrison, where are you? I would definitely hire him. That's it. So it was very simple and it was very strong. And then that's it. What is it? Jeffrey O'Connell. So anyway, that's it. That's all I wrote. And I got and it was I got all sorts of jobs for clerking. Yeah. That's very simple. So you can do the same thing with cover letters. My cover letter, I remember to Quinn Emanuel when I was applying there, it was just something like, I'm interested in practicing. I would very much I've always wanted to be a litigator. Something like I always wanted to be a litigator and practice at the very highest level. I'm just showing you an example of a really good cover letter. Quinn Emanuel, is that firm? And I very much, I am unbelievably impressed with your firm, something like that. And I want to work there, something like that, more than anything. Something it wasn't that, but work for you. Just something very simple. Someone sees that and they're like, the hell, wow. Or I've been a law professor for 40 years. That's it. So a lot of times people think they need to write all this crap and how great they are and their insights. And I will be freaking 100% honest with you that if you can do this very slowly, people they'll see that and they'll be like, wow, what the hell? This is crazy. So this is what you need to do. People do not do this. They write more. Writing more hurts you. It can make you look like a braggart. It can make you look like you're too impressed with yourself. It can make you will make typos many times, or the writing won't be great. There's just all sorts of things that are wrong with that. My advice to you is just, if you say something like this at the end in your email, that's all you need to say. And people are just going to be blown away. So I hope that helps you. I just think that's how that works, what I would recommend. Okay. So this person says, this is a good question. I'm actually happy to answer this particular question because I think it's a good question. This is something I do all day long, is look at these. The person says, what is the best way to, work with BCG? What is the best way for an attorney who would like to work with BCG Attorney Search to get in contact with BCG after completing the questionnaire? You can always tell us. Our number is 310, 444-0000. So you can certainly call, but here's the question. And because all I do are law firm placements. And what does that mean? That's all I do. That's all I've ever done. It's all, frankly, I understand. I've been doing it for a quarter of a century. So what does it mean? What do I know? And what is the best way to get in touch with BCG Attorney Search? BCG will contact you immediately if you are qualified. So if you look like someone that can get a job in a law firm. And what is that? That just means all you need to have is a title of partner or associate, whatever, counsel, title that's a permanent, that makes you look like a permanent attorney, but you're working there, means that all you have, and this is, by the way, this is anything unique to BCG. This is just what you need to get a job in a law firm. I'm not looking for anything other than that. Someone that's going to get a permanent job. I do permanent law firm placements. So it means you have a title like partner, associate, or counsel. It means that you
In addition to having that title, it means that you are in a well-defined practice area. Well, it means you are more than 1 year out of law school. That's another requirement. So that's that. It means you're more than 1 year out of law school. And then it means that you're in one practice area. That's it. That's all you have to do to get a job, really, or work with BCG. It's very hard, but it's not, very few people do this, but this is what you need to do. You need to be in one practice area. But once you've done that, you're in great shape. What does that mean? And it also means you have to not have had tons of jobs, but you have to be from a law firm. That's it. And these are, by the way, these are the things that you need to do. It doesn't matter if you're working with BCG. This is all you need to do to get a job in a law firm. You need to have a title that's a permanent title. This is very important to understand, by the way. This is, again, worth the freaking price of admission. If you want to get a job, what you're going to learn right now, get a job. So it doesn't matter to me what practice area you're in. You could be in insurance defense, you could be in corporate. It doesn't matter. You just have to have these things. So if you have a title, it's a permanent title, meaning it's something that shows you're working permanently. You need to have that permanent title. It means you have to be 1 year out of law school. It means you're in one practice area, meaning you're not doing multiple things. So if you're doing corporate law and litigation, that's not good. You have to be doing one thing. If you're doing patent prosecution and corporate law, that's not a good thing. If you're doing litigation and real estate, not a good thing. You need to be doing one thing because law firms are paying for expertise. They hire from expertise. That's what they want. That's it. So if you do, and you're trying to get a job in the practice area. So that's the other thing. If you're not doing that, that's a problem too, right? So if you're not doing that, that's obviously going to hurt you a lot as well. You need to be doing that, and you can't be coming from, meaning you can't be trying to switch practice areas. By the way, no one is going to hire you that's a firm anywhere near where you're working in terms of prestige level if you're trying to switch practice areas. If you want to go into litigation, you're a corporate attorney, no one's going to be that enthusiastic about you unless you go to a firm that's far less prestigious than where you're at. If you're not, so you just can't do it. I mean, people try to do it all the time. That you can get a job in the practice area, but you certainly can't through a recruiter, and you definitely can't in a firm that's as prestigious as yours, very rarely. And then you have to be from a law firm. So law firms, meaning you could be doing a clerkship or something, or you'll be working for a prestigious branch of the government, like a prosecutor or something, government, doing something prestigious, doing something transferable to a law firm. But other than that, you can't be coming from somewhere that's in-house. You can't be working for a public interest organization. That's it. So these are the things. BCG is just basically a law firm. It's just saying this is what we'll hire. And you can certainly get a job if you're not a permanent title law firm. And a permanent title, meaning you're a contract attorney, staff attorney, something. You can certainly get jobs in law firms if you don't have permanent titles. But at the same time, it's definitely not something that you can do to a recruiter. And you're going to have a very hard time with law firms getting a job that way too. So that's all BCG is looking for. And then if you have those things, you will almost always be contacted because there's firms that you can work at. Okay, let me just hear. Okay, this is a great question. So I'm going to answer this one. This is hugely important. This is something that is important to understand the answer to. And this is a very good question. Again, this is the kind of question that if you ask this is going to get you burned if you answer things most of the time. It's a way that a lot of people answer questions right now. So how do you answer this? Sometimes you can avoid it by talking about other things you're uncomfortable with, or if someone asks, sometimes people ask, are you married? Sometimes people ask about your background. I don't know, things that are related to religion, or so. Sometimes people ask other things, and other times they'll ask where you're interviewing. Saying, I don't feel comfortable asking the question is honestly going to hurt you, because it's just going to make you feel like you're someone that could sue them. You're someone on the lookout for negative things, that the person has done something negative by asking you that, and you're putting them in the corner. why on earth would you make people feel like they're doing something wrong and that you think it's a bad thing when they're interviewing you? Why would they hire you? Wouldn't they hire someone that didn't make them feel that way? Of course they would. Would they tell on your form that you did that? No, they would find other reasons to like you. Anytime someone doesn't like you for one reason, maybe they're not going to say it. They're just going to find other reasons. If they like you, they're not going to talk about the good reasons, the bad things you said. So you would never answer this. You'd have to be insane to say that. It's just not worth it. Why would someone hire you if you're telling them they're doing something wrong, asking that? Why would someone hire you if they think you're going to be trouble? If they hire you, you would have to be crazy. So I'm just telling you, just think about it from an employer's interview. They're going to want to hire someone that makes them feel good about themselves. They're going to want to hire someone that they're not worried is going to sue them. They're going to want to hire someone that doesn't make them feel like they did something wrong in the interview. Wouldn't you? That's what people do. So you can't do that. Now, if someone asks you where else you're interviewing, there is an answer to that. And I should probably put that in a webinar. But where else are you interviewing? That's a very good question. Are you interviewing? When someone asks you that question, you have to basically come back and say something along the line of this is exactly the type of firm I want to, this is exactly the type of firm I want to interview with. I'm primarily applying to firms like this, but I like this firm because this. If you're not interviewing anyplace else, you could say, this is really the only place I want to work and the only place that I'm applying to right now. That sounds really good because that makes the firm feel like there's something special. Maybe it's because of the job they have. It's just, you would say something along the lines, I have a lot of other opportunities I guess I could apply to. There's a lot of positions out there, but I'm most interested in this place because of this. If they ask you where else you're interviewing and the firm is not anywhere near the type of firm, it's different than the type of firm you're interviewing with, they're not going to like that either. I had an interview once. I was interviewing with this very good little boutique in Century City that did litigation. I had a clerkship, and so I was coming out of my clerkship looking for jobs in Los Angeles. And a firm asked me, where else you're interviewing? And I just said, I'm interviewing at Milwaukee, I'm interviewing at Manual, I'm interviewing with firms. And so then they were just, we only want people that want to work in boutiques. That was the end of it. And they were mad about it. So you have to give an impression that's the kind of place you want to work for. If you start saying, I'm interviewing in-house, or I'm interviewing in-house, or I'm interviewing with a public interest organization, that's not good either. Why would you talk about a different practice setting? No, because if you talk about a different practice setting, then that's going to hurt you as well. Why would someone want to hire someone that's not dedicated to working in a law firm? So you just need to be very careful about that. But yeah, the big answer to that is never tell people that you're, I can't answer that. You never tell people that you want to work in another practice setting, or you never answer in a way that makes them feel badly about themselves or whatever. One example might be you're interviewing with one firm. I remember once I was interviewing with a firm and they asked me that, and I told them a branch office of another firm, and all they said was, be very careful of branch offices. And that was enough. So you're interviewing with the main office of a large law firm, and they ask you where else you're interviewing, and you tell them maybe there's one other position, it's at this firm, but it's a branch office. That makes me nervous. You make them feel good about it. So let me say, what the hell just happened? I guess I'm answering. Good, I'm glad I got it. Somehow something happened with. Okay, this person says, I was suspended from the state bar for something that happened 10 years ago. I have otherwise stellar qualifications. We see otherwise federal clerks from top 10 firm. When they Google me, the suspension comes up. How should I handle interviews? You see, sometimes they Google after the interview and I get turned down when I expect an offer. Okay, that's a good question. The first thing you need to do is called reverse SEO. So all that means is when you have to learn about that, there are companies, there are reputation in those companies that do that. But essentially all that means is, you create a ton of social media profiles. You have them profiles, you write a blog, and then you have all that information point towards each other.
meaning you point blog articles towards your social media profiles, you point your social media profiles towards your blog, all these different things. And what'll happen over time, not much time, is that stuff will come up first, and you get it off the first page, you're going to be fine. So that's how people do it. You definitely need to do reverse SEO. This is something I know people that have gotten DUIs, and I know people fired. I know people that have had articles run about them that they were only fans or whatever it's called and things like that. So you just need to make sure that you get that information down. The only way to do it is reverse SEO. So you can find people that can do this and people that do this and so forth. That's it. Once you do that, you should be fine and you can get the stuff off the first page. Now I do want to give you some bad news. I'm trying to be mean here, but you have to understand this from the employer's point of view. They have two choices. One is to hire you with your background, with your bad background. And the other is to hire someone else. That's their problem. So that's their issue. That's the problem. If you were someone and you had a bunch of applicants, what would you do? I was hiring someone to work for me as an assistant once. And I interviewed 5 people for the job. There wasn't that many. One person showed up and she was drunk. And she was actually Woody Harrelson's assistant at the time, or one of his, he had multiple ones. And that did not go well. Another guy showed up and there was this break in his resume, and I kept asking about it. And he told me that he'd stolen from his former employer in prison. Just so, so obviously I didn't hire those people. I hired someone that didn't have anything in their background. So you just have to get that stuff off your resume, off the Google. Now, if that's not enough, then you have to be very clear about what's wrong with you and the problem. So I had a very interesting thing happen once. I hired this recruiter. He's no longer alive. So I'm not unhappy breaking his confidence. His name was Brian Siegel. He worked for me for over 20 years. He recently passed away, but he wrote Siegel's Law Outlines and all sorts of things. And he went to Columbia Law School. He's just a great guy. And so I was in the process of hiring him, and he said, "Thank you, but there's one thing I need to talk to you about before we go through with this." He says, "I was suspended from the bar. I was about ready to get," what did you say? What was it called when you're not suspended? I don't know, kicked out of the bar, whatever that is. And my license revoked. And what I had done was I had taken not the bar, but similar to the baby bar for one of my students. And because he was teaching how to, get past the bar. And I was fired. I was caught. And I just said, I love the guy. And I said, "That's not a big deal. Don't worry about it." And he ended up working with me for over 20 years. But that was something that was decades in his past. And it wasn't something I was concerned about anymore. So what does that mean? That just means that you need to be very careful. You can act, if you need to answer this question, you can. But unfortunately, if it comes up at the beginning of the interview process before you get an offer, it's going to be very hard. I hope that helps and helps you understand everything. You just keep going here. Sorry about that question. We'll see. Okay. Same question. So I'm going to do another one here. And I like the last question a lot. I think it's a good question because everyone has things in their background that may come up negatively. You mentioned the importance of researching the company for an interview. Are there specific questions that an interview can ask that show a deep understanding of the company's challenges and opportunities and how they might contribute to addressing them? No, you don't want to, if the company or law firms have issues and so forth, you definitely do not need to steer things in that direction all that much. So I don't know if that's something you really need to worry about all that much, but you see the importance of researching the company before the interview, specific questions you can ask that shows deep understanding. So what you need to do is you need to ask questions about if someone has certain things in their background. You don't always ask about things you think that you see when you research, for example, the people you're talking to. You may research things about, you give answers, you may drop in things that they did to show you research them. You may, regardless of the type of attorney you are, you may be a real estate attorney, you may be a corporate attorney. You may be a litigation attorney. You may be I don't know, whatever type of attorney you are, you should research the type of work that the firm does and then ask questions about practice area, about what type of, do you work in commercial real estate or residential real estate? Do you work on sort of different things that the firm may do? That you ask about the practice areas and then you would things along those lines. So you don't need to have a deep understanding all the time, but what you do need to do is you need to be able to understand the type of work they do. So you don't want to go into a interview, ask a question about something that you could research very easily. You want to ask a question about something that you've researched and you just say, I noticed you guys have been doing some work lately for public companies and a lot of your clients, are you planning on doing more of that? Like something, and most of your other job work seems to be for smaller companies. Do you think that you ask questions that are growing in that field or not? You ask things that are likely to make the firm feel good. So you try to steer your questions to issues that are related to things that you can show you understand. And very few people, by the way, do this. But researching the practice area that the firm does, researching maybe news stories about things that the firm does, understanding the things that are really positive about the firm and having researched them are very important to know what the firm does. So all of those things will help you do much better and with your interviews. Okay, this is a similar question to the last one. Someone had another one, but I'll answer this one again. I worked for the wrong person. I lost my position as a young attorney who was working very hard. But what the heck is that? And I'm in my first 2 years of practice. How can I prevent my career from being destroyed? And how can I get things back on track? Okay, most attorneys lose their jobs at some point, lose jobs in their career. So sometimes they lose it once. Sometimes they use it multiple times, but almost everyone loses their jobs at some point in their careers. It's just how it works. You lose your job because the firm doesn't have enough work. You lose your job because someone doesn't like you. You lose your job because you made a mistake. You lose your job because the firm can't make you a partner. You lose your job because you do something wrong with a colleague. You may make it sexual. Who knows? People lose their jobs, all sorts of reasons. I've seen people lose their jobs because they got drunk at a party. Who cares? When people lose their jobs, everyone loses their jobs. So the first thing is most attorneys at some point lose their jobs, whether it's something they did wrong or someone like them. There's so many reasons you could lose your job. So I wouldn't worry about it. Does your career get destroyed from doing that? Absolutely not. You can certainly get fired and find plenty of jobs. The best way to get a job, and I talked about this earlier, is to apply for jobs that apply to firms that don't necessarily have openings, because if you do that, you're more likely to get a job. If you are competing with multiple people for a job, so if you're competing with multiple people for the same job, who would you hire? Who would you hire? The person fired, or a person not working, or a person working? So you have to ask yourself those questions. So who would you hire if you were an employer? So one of the things I'll tell you, it's very interesting. So when you get in, and this is to answer your question about your career getting off track. When you get into a law firm, no matter what the law firm is, you have to decide what market are you interested in working in and what size firm. So here's how it works. So if you are from a major firm and you lose your job, your best option, this is just lose your job in a major firm. What is your best option? Your best option, and let's say major city, and anyway, you lose your job in a firm, options are to do the following. You can go to a smaller firm, a smaller, less prestigious firm, which can work. They will often ask questions. Major city with no economic slowdown, with no recession, whatever. It's pretty obvious you lost your job for some reason. So major firm, you lose your job in a major city with no economic slowdown. You can go into a smaller, less prestigious position, which can work. You can
also go into a smaller less prestigious position. You can also go into another market, which is a good idea, smaller market. Or you can try to get a job in another major firm, or you can try to get a job in another major firm at another major firm. But I want to explain a little bit about this real quickly because there's a couple points that I think a lot of people will miss. So the first thing is, if you lose a job in a major city with no economic slowdown, the problem with that is large law firms, especially in places like New York and Los Angeles and all those kind of markets, in Chicago and Houston, like what they have is they have a huge number of attorneys to draw from applying to jobs. So if a law firm in Chicago has an opening for a litigation attorney, they are going to have an incredible number of applicants from other major firms, from major firms in other cities, from circuit court clerks and all this sort of thing for any job that they have. So the problem with that from your perspective is if you're trying to get a job with one of those firms, they're going to just not hire you because they're going to obviously hire people that are employed over ones that aren't. And they're probably going to have access to people with just as good, if not better qualifications. So that's your problem. So how do you get around that? One option is to apply to a smaller firm with a less prestigious position. So that can work. Or you can apply to a smaller market and get a position. That can work. Or you can also try to get a job in another major firm, which can work if you have just very rare qualifications, or if you somehow are able to network in and know a partner or something that can help you get a job there. That's it. So those are your best options. What would I do if I were in a situation and I was in LA, Chicago, New York? What I would do, the first thing is I would try to market myself to smaller firm, less prestigious position. I would apply for jobs and also non-jobs. So I would apply for firms that have jobs and also firms that don't have jobs. I would try other markets, smaller markets, and large firms as well, large and small firms. But what I would also do, and this is, by the way, something for everyone to think about, apply small and large firms. And why would I do that? I would do that because other markets might make it easier for me to get a job. The easiest place for you to get a job, by the way, easiest place, it's usually where you grew up, where you worked before, lived and worked, all that sort of things. Because you'll say, oh, I just want to really work in this market and it's whatever. So that's your easiest way to get a position. And then finally, you always apply everywhere without hope. That's what I would do. I would not anyway. And then I'm not going to freaking sit here and promote my own company. Law Crossing, I would use to find firms without advertised job, meaning public advertised. So that's how I would, and I would also use Law Crossing Archive. And Law Crossing Archive just means all that is that's firms that have had openings in the past. So that means they're likely to have them in the future. So I would apply to those firms as well. That's how I would handle it. So those are your best options. I bet anybody that loses their job can get a job. I used to own this company. I still own it, but it's operational, called Legal Authority. What that company did is that company would go out and basically do mass mailings using letters to all sorts of anybody, your practice area, any firm that did it. And if you chose a lot of places and applied to a lot of places, an incredibly high number of people, like percentage, would get jobs. And if you apply to enough places, everybody would get jobs. So it works applying to a lot of places. I'll just give you one example. Anyway, people doing things were crazy. I'm not going to get too far into it, but I may have told the story last week or a week before, but I had 2 law students that had gone to Thomas Cooley, which is not the greatest law school out there. It may be like one of the lowest ranked. And 2 students that had graduated. One of them brought his father to meet me, along with the other law student. These guys were in California getting ready to take the bar. They were from Michigan and had not done well in law school. Both had jobs in entertainment law firms out of law school now in LA. So they got jobs not from being from LA, no connection, in an entertainment law firm, coming from one of the worst law schools in the country, doing mass mailings to entertainment law firms. How hard is it to get a job in entertainment law in LA? It's almost impossible unless you have connections, because I don't think, maybe I don't remember making any placements of entertainment attorneys, because there are so many people that want to do it. It's very difficult. Now, getting a job as an entertainment out of law school is even more ridiculously difficult. But you have when you're in law school, because who's going to hire? It's hard to explain why entertainment is such a hard thing to get into, but it's extremely hard. And both of these guys had gotten multiple jobs. They couldn't believe it. And all they did was send letters to every law firm in LA that did entertainment law, and they got jobs. LA's entertainment law, impossible. I don't know of any placements that I've ever made doing that. I may have. I've certainly made hundreds of placements, if not thousands of people that are in litigation or corporate or IP. But that particular practice area, no, just absolutely not. So I'm just telling you that if you contact a lot of places and you do mass mailings, it's going to change your life and your career. No one does it. Works. I don't know how else to say it. Law schools, if you're in law school, often will tell you not to do it, but that's the only reason, is because if everyone in their law school did it, employers would get hundreds of applications, so maybe 50 per person. And the law firms need to be able to, and the schools need to be able to steer certain people to the best jobs. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just how it works. So if you get fired, if you're having a hard time finding a job, the only thing you need to do, it's very simple, is you need to just apply to every place you can find without openings. And that's works. The reason it works is those employers are not receiving other applicants. So, for some of them, you'll be the only person that's ever written them looking for a job. If you send a letter, it's much better than just applying randomly, than sending an email. Emails can be deleted. Letters come when they arrive on someone's desk. That's incredible. Same thing with faxes. You send a fax that comes and arrives on someone's desk. So I'm just telling you, it's a much better way of applying for jobs than any other way. It works. Here, let me just say, thank you for the presentation. I'm impressed because perfectly described my situation. At a previous job, I remember my first week learning that the office's only senior associate quit. I overheard the conversation where he gave his notice over the phone. I remember my boss screaming at and berating him for taking what sounded like a better job at a bigger firm. That day on, I was walking on eggshells. I never would have taken the job in retrospect. How can I draw the line between setting my expectations too high, unrealistic, but still know how to avoid firms that will not be a place that I want to be versus those that are? Okay, let me understand this better on my first week. Okay, avoiding firms that will not be a place that I want to be versus those that are. Okay, so the idea here, and I think it's important to understand, is that even if you're in a law firm where people are quitting, even if you're in a law firm where things aren't going well, even if you're a law firm where, that it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. You just have to, you have to realize every law firm has problems with people quitting. Every law firm has people that are leaving all the time. Every law firm has people that are fired. Every law firm. There's no such thing as that. So with the mistake that a lot of people make, it's very funny. So someone may be at a huge firm, like very prestigious, like Simpson Thacher, and they'll say, yes, I'm leaving because morale is very low, or I'm leaving because things are slow, or I'm leaving because it's just become a toxic environment. Like they'll say this about a firm. Like, again, I think Simpson Thacher, I love the firm. I think it's one of the best law firms in the world. I have nothing negative to say about Simpson Thacher, but people will say things like this. And they'll say this because I don't know why they say it, but they say things like this about Simpson Thacher. That law firm, I don't know how old it is. It's 100, I don't know. Or they'll say it about Davis Polk. Look, I don't know how old it is. Very old firm. They'll say this about these firms. And that's crazy because these firms are going to be around decades from now, or they may be around another 100 years. I don't know. But they're very good firms. And so if somebody is applying to one of these firms and they're working at one of these firms and they say something like that, the problem is generally them. It's not the firm, because the firm, they may be toxic one day or not toxic the next, but these firms just keep going. So you don't have to worry about, you should not pay attention to people that are unhappy. You should pay attention to the people where things are going well, right? To people where the things are going well. Let me just write this down. Where things are going well. People who things are going well for, sorry. Why do you think that if you go to a law firm and almost everyone that goes there doesn't make partner or whatever, that some people do, you're probably better off sticking with the person understanding the person where things are going right. You pay attention to things are going well than those that are going wrong. So this one piece of advice, again, worth the price of admission, because everyone makes this mistake. So this is an incredibly important point. So I want to make sure that everyone understands it. This one point could change your life and your career. That's how important it is. If you're still on this webinar, which it looks like most people are, which is great, then this is, again, something that could change your life and your career. So there are two types of people. There are people that are fountains, filling fountains. I think I put this different way. Filling fountains, and there are people that are draining fountains. So what does that mean? So that means that you have a choice of being one of two types of people. You have a choice of being someone that is positive, that is adding value, all these sorts of things, creating opportunities, growing others. And this is an incredibly important point. This is the whole reason that most people do not succeed in life and also in law firms. So this is your choice. You have a choice. And these are people that are negative. And this is, again, you choose your path. It's up to you, man. But you look at your parents, you look at people that are successful, you look at people that are not successful, you look at your friends that are people that you went to school with, people that are doing well, people that are happy, they're one of two types of people. It's just the way the world works. So you have draining fountains. They're negative. It means they're taking value away from organizations or work with others. That means that they're destroying opportunities. It means that they're not growing. They're not growing others. They're not growing others. There's more to this than that, but this is the general idea. Let me just say not growing others. And there's just people that this is how they are. So you have a choice. You can be one of these two types of people. If it were me, what you need to do is you need to try to be a positive person. So what am I trying to do with you? I'm trying to be positive. I'm trying to add value to your career. I'm trying to create opportunities. I'm trying to help you grow. I'm trying to grow myself by learning more things. And do you want to be, again, this is the path that I've chosen. Am I perfect in it? No, but this is the path. And you can be negative and you can take value away. You can destroy opportunities. You cannot be not growing. You cannot be growing others. So if you are in a law firms, you have two choices. You can be this person. The filling fountains, or you can be the one that's draining fountains. And that's your choice. So some associate that's calling up and yelling at a partner is probably someone that drains fountains. These are the types of people that are everywhere. So just because you're surrounded by some negative people that are draining fountains, like that's crazy, because Simpson Thatcher is going to be around forever, probably forever, but you understand what I'm saying, for a long time. It's been around for a long time. All a good organization does, by the way, any good law firm, any good employer, any good company, all they do is they just are constantly, and this is so freaking important. If you learn this, your whole life and career are going to change. Your relationships will change. Law firms are always, what is it called? Expelling people, getting rid of people that are draining fountains. That's one of the whole points. So that's same thing with companies. Companies, law firms are always getting rid of people that are draining fountains. And what happens to law firms that go out of business? Law firms that go out of business are not draining fountains. So law firms that go out of business, they just have all these kind of toxic people sitting around, and they just get so many of them, and it overwhelms them. They don't get rid of them. So law firms that fail are often not draining fountains, or they're overwhelmed with bad people that are draining fountains. And so that's what happens. Same thing with companies. Once you get a bunch of negative people there that are draining fountains, you're in trouble. That's just how it works. So you have to choose one side or the other. And you probably know right now what side you're on. And most people, by the way, are often on the draining fountain side. This is what they're looking for in law firm interviews. Are you that type of person? And if you are that type of person, you're going to be in a lot of trouble, and you're not going to get jobs. That's what people are looking for. They're looking for fountain drainers. And that's what good law firms are firing people for. So just because a law firm is firing people or getting rid of people, that doesn't mean that you have to freaking quit or that something's wrong. That just means that the law firm is probably draining fountains and trying to remain a good firm, or the person is just a fountain drainer. Does that mean that all law firms are good and all law firms are a good place to work? No, but this is really the big dynamic of what makes law firms survive. You cannot say that Simpson Thatcher or some other big firm is a horrible place because they're letting people go, or their morale is low, or it's become a toxic environment. Probably what's happening is they're draining fountains. So that's just what happens. You know what law firms do, by the way? Law firms, anytime there's a recession and work slows down, they often actually look forward to it. Now, do they look forward in a positive way? No, but it gives them an opportunity to get rid of negative people and people that are draining fountains. It's just what happens. It happens because that's what law firms and organizations need to do to survive. If they have a bunch of negative people that are negative and taking value away, doing things that are hurting morale and not growing, and just negative and not growing others and just putting others down and sitting around and talking with negative people, those are the people the law firm doesn't want. They know who you are and they don't like it. If you're a really positive person, you're building up other people around you. There's a guy, he may be on this webinar right now, and I really like him. He sent me a nice email after this past one or the other one. I didn't respond to him. Should have. There's so many emails, but he's an associate, but I think he's probably in his late 40s, early 50s, but he's an associate at I don't know, keeps getting in these jobs, these incredible jobs at big firms, like huge international firms, but he's not a partner. He's in the practice area, like some sort of very technical practice area. I don't know what that practice area is. It's some corporate related, some sort of very arcane finance or financing airplanes, or I don't know what it is, something like that. And he is so positive. Like he sends emails like, "Thank you for your support. I really like this you did. And the thing is about him that's so interesting is I was wondering, like, how does someone hang on to an associate position this long in these major law firms? And meaning making, without any business, consistently making and a lot of money. I'm sure makes over $500,000 a year. And how does that happen? Like, it happens because he's in this practice area where it's probably very difficult to get business, but he's still able to, when in law firms don't consistently have work, when they have work, they'll always hire him. But he's so positive and building people up and enthusiastic about his job, growing, learning, and doing all these positive things. And that's a fountain filler. And those are the kind of people that stay employed. Imagine this guy, like most people are bailing out of probably the law firms, kind of law firms they worked in 1 or 2 years in, 5 or 6 years later, and then popping in house and doing all these other things. This guy's managed to keep going. And so what's nice is just, he's like a fountain filler. And if you see the most successful partners in law firms, like these are fountain fillers. Like they go out and they build up their clients and they add value and they connect to the opportunities and they help the client grow and be good. This is what the best attorneys do with their clients. It's what they do with others. It's what the most successful associates do. They're all fountain fillers, every single one of them, up and down, some are toxic and things, but those people typically, the system will flush them out and they will not rise. I look at attorneys that I knew, and I'm sorry to go into so much detail about this, but it's just so important. I knew attorneys that I knew when I was younger that were partners in law firms because they may have been hired by a branch office of a big law firm when the law firm just needed people. And basically, they were just complete fountain drainers and negative, building people up around them, not making people feel good, them not growing, believing they have a really big deal. And all of those people, their careers just went completely in the frickin' toilet. Like now they're major 1,000 plus person law firms. Now they're just cowering in these little firms, a few people without any, that they may have started. So if you have a choice, and I'm sorry to harp on this, but this is literally one of the most important lessons that you can have in your life, because this is what it takes to do well. And this is what makes people happy. This is what makes you very important. What makes people get important. Let's make attorneys get business. It would make people happy. If you contribute to others and you are positive with clients, employers, with everything, and you are filling fountains, then you are going to succeed in your life and career. You are going to succeed in your relationships with people. You are going to succeed in your relationships with your significant others. You are going to succeed in your jobs. You are going to succeed in whatever you do if you choose this option for your life and your career. And that's what's going on in law firms. When people are losing their jobs, they're typically fountain drainers. When people are doing things that are negative, they're typically fountain drainers. You need to stay around people that are filling fountains and doing positive things, because that's all there is to it. If you need to, and sometimes you'll be in a firm where it's just a bunch of people that are negative and the firm's having all these problems. And that means you go another direction, but you watch what's happening in law firms, who's losing their jobs, who's having problems, who's not getting work. And it's always going to be people that are doing this fountain drainer and so forth. It's how it works. Really, if you ever just learned one thing in these webinars and you wrote it down, this is your choice, is to be one of these two people. If you're a fountain drainer, you're going to have an unsuccessful career. You're going to be unhappy. And you may not even know why. You won't even know why. Why am I getting business? Why am I unhappy in job? Why do I keep getting fired? Why am I having all these problems? Why am I unhappy in my life? Why do I have bad relationships? Why do I keep getting divorced? Why do people not like me? Why am I unhappy? It's all because of this. It's very simple. If you are building other people up and you're adding value to companies, your clients, your firm, all that stuff, you're creating opportunities for others, you're helping people. That's all you need to do, man. That's it. This is the number one lesson to being successful as an attorney, is doing that. If you do the opposite and you just take value, you don't help people, this is what people remember. People always remember the people that help them and help them grow and add value and do all these things. This is what they remember. This is the people that they thank. These are the people whose funerals they go to and give speeches. These are the people that you remember. These are the people that change your life. These are the people that if you are that person, people will always care about you. These are the people that this is it. You just need to be on one side or the other. And if you're on the draining fountain side, you're never going to know why you're having problems in your career. You're just going to think everything sucks. And the whole idea of this, by the way, I talked to very successful partners, and just because I don't know, I just keep meeting them, and that most of them aren't get their jobs, but people with these astronomical books of business, and all they do, their secret really, is they give of their time freely when someone's not a client. They always try to save their clients money. They create opportunities for people around them. They create opportunities for clients. They just do all these things that are very positive, and people like them and give them business. And they have these great, incredible careers. They're rich and whatever. And that's what you need to do to be successful. You just need to be on one side or the other. And by the way, Most people are on the side of filling fountains. Most people are on the side of draining fountains. And that's why they get pushed out of law firms and jobs and are unhappy. That's just how it works, man. So think about where you want to be. And I remember one of the most successful attorneys that I ever met. I was in law school with him. I think he's like the head of a huge firm now, like DLA Piper or something. I don't know what it is, but he was always like going around and being really nice to people and offering to help them and being excited and just really upbeat. And I just remember from law school, it's like, why is this guy so freaking psyched and happy? And again, he became I don't think he had the greatest grades. He just became incredibly successful because he was so positive and added so much value to others. And so that's the kind of person you want to be. I don't know, these are company questions. I'm not quite sure I understand, but just reflecting on my previous roles, I've discovered kind of situations where expectations set during the interview were different from the responsibilities in day-to-day work. How does a company ensure alignment between what is discussed in the interview and the actual task assigned on a regular basis? Okay, so I'm just going to say it right now, do not worry about it. Who cares? No, don't worry about it. This is another big problem. If you understand this one, it's also going to change your career and life. This one can change your career and life. I can't even emphasize how important this first one is, but this is the other one. No, you do not worry about getting too much work. You don't worry about a law firm hiring you and saying one thing and not the other. You don't worry about any of this crap. It doesn't concern you and it's not going to make you successful. So you have two more choices, and you can think of a job as a partnership and career, or you can think of it as a job. So you have that choice. You have two choices. So what does a partnership and career mean? It means that, you're a partner. You're a partner and partnering with the employer, and that's it. And you're going to behave like it's your business as well, and like it is your business as well, and not worry, and just do what you need to. Meaning, you're not going to worry about what the things are. You're just doing the job, and you're a partner with a employer. You're not worried about something's one thing or another. That's a job. A job is like responsibilities and meeting my job description, you plays against the employer, right? That's plays against the employer, workers versus management, all that kind of thing. That's it. That's it. So you can be that way if you want with a law firm or any job that you have. If you want to work in a factory or something, that maybe you can certainly join a union and everything. And I'm not saying that's the wrong thing to do. If you're in a factory, it probably is based on what you're, but no, you can have a job or you can have a partnership and career. So what does a partnership and career mean? It means that you're on the freaking side of the employer. You're doing what it takes to help them. You're not looking for trouble. If things happen, you're going to try to support the firm. You're there being their partner and someone that is going to help them and someone that is going to look out for them, that's going to have their back. You're going to do the same thing with the people that work for you. People are going to be comfortable with you. They're going to want to give you work. You're going to not use things against them. You're going to be positive. You're going to be on the side of the firm. You're going to act like an owner should act, meaning you're not going to be looking for trouble. You're going to be trying to do things right. You're going to be supportive of the company, the law firm. That's your choice. If you do those things, you will succeed. If you treat it like a job, which is insane, but people will do this, then you'll basically be looking for responsibilities. You'll be looking like you're an employer and they have to treat you a certain way and do things a certain way. And they better not give you too much work. They better not do any of these things that are against what your expectations are. They better give you your freaking bonuses that are meeting everyone other firm. They better do all these things. You can live your life and your career as someone that goes from job to job, but think about, is that going to help you like advance? Is that going to ever give you a peace being against your firm or your employer? Is that a smart thing to do? Because again, people are taking, when you are interviewing places, they're looking if you're a filling the fountains or a draining fountains person. They're also looking at how much is this person going to treat this as a job as opposed to a partnership and a career. That's crazy. You just don't want to do that. You want to act, it's a partnership and a career. And so you have to think about that. So you basically do whatever is required to, and just your choice, you don't have to, but to basically treat your job like a partnership and a career as opposed to a job. Meaning you treat a job like a job and you have responsibilities. You're only going to do this. You're going to be on the side of the management. I was reading like this article, and I don't know if it's true. And Nixon Peabody is a great firm. It's one of my clients, and nothing but positive things to say about this firm. It's from, I think, upstate New York, and which is not a huge market. Now it's got offices all over the country. It's a very good firm. Nixon Peabody, I was reading, I think it was the Wall Street Journal. I don't know if it's true or how true it is. And I feel you're getting the firm wrong, but I think I'm right. It has this kind of thing where the associates are all banding together and demanding to only work certain hour, certain like time and things, and almost behaving as if they're in a union. I do not think, and then that's like the partners against associates against the partners and all this sort of stuff. That's the dynamic that I got. And I don't know, maybe it's not every office, I don't know the specifics of it. But the point is I was looking at this and like all these associates acting like this is just a job. Like if you were a partner, like how would you possibly consider, why would you want to make people that were acting like that partners? If I was a partner, I would advance the people that weren't acting like that I could trust, that were on my side, that were working more hours than everyone else was demanding enough to work. That's how I would behave. It's your choice. So what would I do if I was Nixon Peabody? I would make sure that the people that were banding together against me, I would be more likely to advance the people that were just acting like it's a partnership and not worrying about all this crap. But people do that. People get against the firm or the management as if this is a job when they may want to be a partner, or they may want recommendations from people that they're working for, more important jobs or whatever. Like it's not going to work out for anyone if you treat anything you do like a job. Like that's very short-term thinking. That kind of short-term thinking is going to destroy your life and your career. It's just not how it works. Sometimes I was talking to someone too long ago, and they had this expectation. Like this person, by the way, was older, like in their 70s. And they were talking about, their 60s. I think they were in their 60s. And they had been married, I don't know, a few times, I don't know how many times, for very short periods of time, 2 years, 3 years, I don't know. And when they were younger, maybe their 30s or something. And so this person had told me that they met someone and they discussed it, and he agreed with her that she would pay for entertaining and travel and split with every time they went out to eat for dinner. And she would buy groceries and cook, and he would pay the mortgage on the house and allow her to use his leased car a certain number of miles per year and all this other stuff along those lines. Meaning, this is what you're required to do. You're required to take us on vacations. You're required to do all these things as part of a relationship where these two people were going to live together and portray themselves as a couple for the rest of their lives. That was completely insane. And I was like, this is not how relationships work. And the person said, wasn't that how you discussed every relationship? And I was like, no, of course not. Like that is just, and why is that a bad idea? If one person agrees to pay for vacations, maybe the person that's not expects them to pay for a certain number of vacations, expects a certain quality vacation. It's just crazy. So that's treating a relationship like a economic game, like where one person's employed by the other. That is insane. I'm not saying if you do it, you're insane. I don't think that's going to work. If you treat a job so those kind of couples don't work out and everyone's unhappy and it's not a relationship, that's not how it works. So that's how you do it. So if you decide that you want to run your life and career like that, then you're going to be in trouble. So you need to treat things as a partnership and not a career. And that's all I'm saying. You treat your job like that. You treat your relationships like that, if it's always a quid pro quo, like it's not cool. So you just stay away from that with employers. You stay away from it. You just avoid that. So help me advance. I got a fantastic job, and all I did was listen to a few interviews, try to do what you said. I continue to attend your webinar because I want to. Oh, thank you. That's great. Yeah. And again, like this sort of information on these webinars and things listen to them and you follow them. I'm just looking at what made people successful. I've been in the self-improvement industry before. All this stuff can help you great deals. Yeah. And it's not, so it's very helpful and people can do well with this sort of information. It's just, I would read articles or whatever you can do because it's all about learning and caring about this sort of stuff. It doesn't mean if the more learning you do and the more questions you ask and things, the more effective you're going to be. And you have to listen to people that have done it before. So this is an interesting question. This person says, prospective law student here, is there a certain LSAT score that I can make to get into good law schools, overlook the lower grade point average? Yes. So law school, by the way, there's basically, I was talking to an admission person not too long ago. I was at dinner for a law school. They basically have two tracks, most of them. So they have people with high LCT scores, LCTs, then they have high grades. And most applicants, the majority of them, except some schools, most applicants the best applicants have one or the other. That's it. Have one or the other. That's it. So that's what you need to understand. The best applicants have one or the other. So what does that mean? So that means that you can get into even a top 10 law school with very high LSATs or very high grades. Most applicants do not have both. Most applicants may have only high LSATs, or most applicants will have only high grades. So I know plenty of people that go to law schools with only one of those. Now, there's a second track, of course, which is if you want to go to Yale or something like that. Second track has both, but that's how it worked. But most people have one of the others. So I hope that helps. Okay. This is an interesting question. I'll answer this. Again, if anybody has any more questions, I'm happy to answer them. I know there's people on this may not have asked this question. Make sure I answer them all. And some of these, by the way, questions you've asked, I've already answered them. So I'm not going to I won't do every single question because a lot of them I've already answered. So I'm going to go through these and make sure that I haven't. If I've already answered, I'll just briefly talk about it. Okay, what should I be aware in two interviews at the same time? I try to connect with both. I'll still be mindful of the difference in seniority, but I always find one losing interest when I address the other, especially in online interviews. Also, I find it hard to connect with both are the opposite gender. Senior female attorneys. Okay, let's see. In part because political correctness in most firms makes me conscious about seeing anything appropriate. What would you suggest? Okay, I'm going to answer this in a couple different ways. I will talk about partners, interviewing associates. It sounds like this is what you are. So I'll answer that. And I'll talk about associates, interviewing peers, interviewing partner, associate, peers. Okay. So the first thing, when you're seeing one losing interest when you address the other, especially in online interviews, one of the mistakes, it sounds like you're giving long-winded answers. If you're seeing people are losing interest, you need to be very cognizant when you give answers. Most people are not looking for long answers to questions. If someone's being very formal, an interview should be a conversation. If the interview turns into something that's not a conversation and you don't feel comfortable, that may be somewhere where you don't necessarily want to ask. If people are cold and distant, act like they're judging you and everything, that's weird, right? So you need to be careful of not getting into interviews that are like that, and that may not be a good question. You just basically, you're saying people are losing interest. You need to basically just be very direct in your answers, not say too much. People are going to get bored when you do that. Anytime you see someone looking away, that's not a good sign. You need to be very careful about how you're answering questions so people aren't getting bored with your answers, which is one of the more important things. To the extent you can just give shorter answers. Two quick things I just want to say. When a partner's interviewing associates, it's okay for the associate. They want people that seem dedicated and hardworking and all that sort of thing, and trying to advance. This is what partners want. associates want, when they're interviewing peers, they want people that they want people that they want people that are not going to make them look bad. They're not going to try to make them look bad, meaning working harder, being smarter, all that sort of. They want people basically that are going to be on their team. I don't know, but you understand what I'm saying. So that's what an associate wants. So you have to be cognizant of that. If you're talking to male and females, I really don't think I don't know that there's a difference there. You need to figure out, it's half the human race, if you can do better dealing with senior female attorneys as opposed to whatever political correctness means. Even when you're talking to men, you have to be very careful about talking about acting like you're in a fraternity and so forth, unless the person's really like that. You just have to be very careful. I hope that helps with the way you're thinking about this. So would you please provide an outline of questions suggested candidates should ask? Yeah, I would just, this webinar is it's either on harrisonbarnes.com or on BCG search. So I would just do it. Sort of, what is the title? Do you have any questions? Do you have any additional, whatever the title of this webinar was, I think was, do you have any additional questions? Interview. I think that's questions, and then just search for BCG. I would just search for Harrison Barnes and BCG search or whatever, something like that, or Harrison Barnes. And then I think the outline of this article will come up. When it comes to asking questions about successful attorneys at the firm, how can candidates ensure that their inquiries come across as genuinely curious rather than strategic or rehearsed? You don't have to ask questions directly about successful attorneys. You can just say, what do people do here that seems to make them do well? What's unique about this? And you don't have to ask it in that way, but you can ask it in a way where it doesn't sound that strategic or rehearsed. You can ask it just in a way where the law firm feels that that you're trying to generally get that information without appearing, whatever. I think you understand what I'm saying. You want to, again, I hope that helps. I don't know. I think I've answered that question, but I just would recommend elements that you just try to act in a way that you can. Okay. This other person asked, let me see. I apologize if that wasn't the greatest answer. What I would recommend is just figuring out a way to answer that's not strategic and rehearsed. And even if it's strategic and rehearsed, it's probably okay. I think that's the real answer that I would give to you. Okay, what if you're interviewing with multiple people and can't connect with one? That's okay. Sometimes you won't be able to connect with certain people. You can do your best, but if you can't, there's nothing you can do about it. So I don't think that's something I would worry too much about. This person asked the same question. Let me just see here. You can't expect to connect with each one. So if you can't connect with one person, there's sometimes the person has an issue. I just think actually this is important. Sometimes the person has an issue. It doesn't involve you. So it doesn't involve you. So what does that mean? That means they may not want to hire other people. They may think if someone else is hired that maybe their job is going to be in jeopardy. They may, this is actually important to understand. So this again is another extremely important question. So why are people not nice to me in interviews? You have to answer the question. So why would that be? Why are certain people, it could be partners or it could be associates, associates or partners. What are those people could have issues with you? You don't know why, but I'll tell you why some of them. So you may go into interviews and certain people may not be nice to you. So why is that? Why are people not being nice to you in interviews? What is going on? Like, why is an associate not being nice? They could be threatened, meaning they could be threatened. They're worried that you're going to take their work or take their work. Meaning they could be threatened. They could, if they're at your level, your level and your senior that they could, you're competitive for partnership, right? Partnership. They could be friends with someone at your level and think that be friends with someone at your level. And I'm just trying to help you understand all this. Friends with someone at your level whose job is at risk, right? Who not doing well. And so they may think if you are hired, you can take their job, right? So That's a concern, right? So they're concerned about that. So all these sorts of things can happen with associates. You just don't know. Or you could have better qualifications and they're threatened. Better qualifications and they're threatened because they think that whatever vacation. So you just don't know. Or they may not like them. They may not like the firm, right? They may have bad vibes or whatever and may have bad vibes firm and want to work somewhere else. Who knows? Or want to sabotage it. You don't know, right? These are things that if you don't have you're not connecting, there could be all sorts of things that have nothing to do with you. So you don't have to worry about this. And then with partners could not want the firm to spend the money because they think others can do it, right? It's firms spend the money. Because partners get a portion of the revenue that comes in, right? They may believe that others can do it. They may want to hire people and and the firm themselves and not be allowed to until someone hired because someone else is allowed to, right? Because another partner, another group partner or whatever, are they allowed to hire someone to work for them? All these sorts of things could be happening. Sometimes the partners may be leaving or want to sabotage the firm. There's just so many freaking reasons that you have no idea of. Sometimes they already have a favorite, both sides. They already have a favorite, someone that interviewed earlier, right? So they just automatically, someone interviewed earlier. And it could be a friend of theirs. You don't know, right? It could be, who knows, earlier for same jobs. You just don't know. So I'm trying to tell you all the reasons you can not connect. I'm trying to tell you all the reasons why you may not get a job when someone else, you're competing with other people, partners. Some may not like someone else better. They can be distracted. I don't know, just distracted. They may not like your qualification. They may not like your law school or whatever. So I want you to understand all these different reasons that people may not get an offer in a law firm or not connect with people, and it has nothing to do with you. You can't take it personally if someone is threatened. You can't take it personally if a partner doesn't want to hire you because it doesn't want the firm wants the firm to save money. You just can't take any of this personally. So you don't worry about it. If you don't connect with someone, who cares? It's not a big deal. Anybody that can be distracted, anybody can be distracted, and it just doesn't matter. So don't worry about it. And the final thing I would say to you, it's not easy to get interviews. So let's be clear, but if you don't get a job with one firm, you can always probably get a job with another, and you shouldn't worry about not connecting. If you don't connect, maybe it's not a good place for you to work. I wouldn't really worry too much about it. So it is a positive look at partners on Westlaw and ask questions about the case or how they felt about the case result. Yeah, you can do that, but you can steer things towards there if you want. It's more important, by the way, that it's more important to connect with someone, and use the information that you've learned about them to connect with them better than to just blurt out stuff. Meaning you connect with someone, meaning you relate to them, you talk to them about things they may have done. You connect with them is more important than just blurting out stuff you read about them. If you connect with them in a way works, that's much more effective doing that. That makes sense. It's next question. It's a good question. You see, what the heck happened here? How can one effectively inquire about the organization's commitment to diversity and inclusion without coming across as presumptive or confrontational? Typically, when a law firm's committed to those things, it will have things that are online. It will talk about it. It will relate to things. It will promote its inclusion and diversity in that sort of way. If the law firm doesn't do that, then that's a sign. If you see certain types of people, a lot of them there, and they seem comfortable, that's a sign. So you have to look at what's there. If the law firm presumptively brings it up, that's a sign. If you can get a sense of all that based on the way things are at the law firm already, or things that they have said publicly, or things that are on their website, all those sorts of things will give you an idea of how committed the law firm is to diversity. I will say that almost without fail, every law firm out there is committed to diversity and wants diversity. Why is that? Because lots of companies that do business with law firms will not do business with them unless they have a certain amount of diversity. That's that important. Practice here is like employment. It's just absolutely crazy to send in white males when people that are suing are all different backgrounds and things. And why would they only have white? So all these things, just you have to understand that law firms expect people to expect or need diversity. And it's just, they're absolutely committed to it. Their clients require it. Their recruiting requires it. The law schools they recruit at require it. This is like huge. So why would a law firm not be committed to diversity? They are committed to diversity. Now, that doesn't mean that people in diverse backgrounds don't do well. It doesn't mean that the requirements of what's expected for the quality of your work is any lower. It just means that, I will say again, there are law firms that are probably not good places to work. If you're diverse, I will be the first to admit that. I would not be comfortable in certain law firms if I was of a certain background, because I know the type of people that are there. But I don't think it's a question you need to ask. I think it's something that you can pick up from a lot of the people that you're working with, when you see the firm, what it's like. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't be an important consideration for where you work. I just would say that think about it. I wrote a book about diversity in law firms. It's a book, Harrison book. So you can find, I don't know what it's called, but a book about law firm diversity. And so you can find that if you search law firm diversity. And I have written an entire book about it, which I thought was pretty good, but it's obviously a particular topic. And working through all these questions. So everyone stick around. We've got most of this. Let me see here. I got all the questions. All right. Thank you, everyone, for being on this webinar today. And I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving. This is I guess it's getting started right now for a lot of people with family and things. If it's 5 o'clock in the East Coast. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I do appreciate everyone taking the time. I think this was a great webinar because we definitely covered a lot of very important ground in terms of the type of person you are in a law firm, the questions, and basically your life when you work. I think that the two types of people were very important thing that you learned, I think, today. So I hope that helps. I think the idea of understanding the types of firms, how to apply to firms, meaning applying to places that don't have openings, I think was a huge thing we covered today. I think understanding the types of positions, the types of people that law firms hire, and what BCG will do, but more along the lines of how do you get a job at a law firm? You keep a permanent title, you have a certain practice here, and you stay in law firms. I think that was important. And then applying to lots of places and understanding that, and then making sure you keep all this frickin' stuff off your resume that could possibly be pro bono and show you want to do something else. So I feel very good about the material we covered. I think this is a great webinar because you've been on this for 4 hours. So I think we covered a lot of important information, and I would say congratulations for learning all this, because just this particular topics could literally change your entire direction of your life and career. So thanks again for everyone being on the webinar. I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving, and we will talk next week. So thanks again. Have a great Thanksgiving.